streamed and recorded. The recording will be made available on the Council website for public listening. Members may notice that when calling members to speak, I'll refer to them formally using their title so that it's clear that who are councillors and who, by the process of elimination, are officers. Before we move on to the committee business, I want to highlight some recent award successes of the Facilities, Waste and Neighbourhood Services team. The National Facilities Management Assist Award. These awards held on the 15th of May 2025 in the categories of School Cook of the Year, Digital and Technology and Community Focus. Carly Johnson, Lockerbie School Catering Manager and Dumfries and Galloway School Cook of the Year, was awarded 3rd place. Emma Curry, Cargan Bridge Primary School, was awarded winner in the Community Focus Award, and the Cleaning Services won the Outstanding Contribution to Cleaning Award. I'm sure members will wish them the best for that. Thank you. At the APSI Award, on the 22nd of May, the Waste team won the Silver Awards in the Waste and Recycling category for battery collection service. I would also like to welcome Councillors Andy McFarlane and Ben Ashburn to their first meeting of this committee, and to thank Councillors Kim Lowe and Stephen Thompson for their contribution at previous meetings. Remote participants, please follow the good practice guidance, which includes muting microphones and switching off your video when not addressing the meeting, writing speak in the Teams chat function when you want to contribute, and if you're in the hall, you could do this on your iPhone or iPad. Please don't repeat contributions already made by other members. No material should be posted in the chat function if it's intended to be part of the discussion. And the usual standing orders apply, including that any votes will be taken by a roll call. If any member has to leave the meeting, please either leave the Teams meeting for that period of time or write leave in the Teams chat function, and then join when you wish to rejoin the meeting. This is in order that we could assure that the meeting is quorate. All members should speak clearly into the microphone, taking time speaking directly into the microphone. I'm going to repeat myself. When referring to reports, please give the relevant page and paragraph to allow everyone to follow. Please focus contributions on area where clarification is required, or to propose an alternative to a recommendation. Claire, can you provide the Sutherland indicating who's participating remotely, and any apologies, please?
Good morning. Thank you, Chair. I can advise we've got 16 members present, 11 in the hall, 5 on Teams, being Councillors Hagman, Ingalls, McGregor, Marsh and McFarlane. Received apologies from Councillor Dempster, and Councillors Dookie Campbell, Ian Carruthers and Ian Howie are currently not present. Since the papers were published, Councillor Lynn Davis has left the committee. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, Councillor Marshall.
Just before we move on to the minutes of the previous meeting, item 3, I'd just like to maybe request that, having looked at the exempt item 23, which is school and local bus network procurement process, having a look at the report. Now, I do acknowledge that there may be some confidential information that may be discussed at this item, but that could be probably provided in a written confidential update. But I think because this item is already in the public domain, then I would prefer to have this in public, a general discussion and update on where we are, but any confidential information can be passed to members confidentially written.
Where I do understand the sentiment behind that, and I agree it is in the public, the public domain. Having looked at the papers, I think that with the element of confidentiality that's contained within them, that the only way forward is to do it as an exempt paper. Go back to... Sorry.
I'd like to propose that we do take it in public.
Councillor McGregor.
Thank you, Chair. It was just to say that Ian Howie and Dougie Campbell are on leave, so they're an apology.
Councillor Marshall, you said that was a proposal? Okay, do you have a seconder? Okay.
Thanks, Chair. Happy to second.
Chair, just to advise, exclusion of the public is dealt with under item 22 on today's agenda.
Yeah, it's probably more appropriate if you agree. We'll leave this to the end of the meeting, to the appropriate part. Thanks for that, Claire. I confirm my agreement to the participation of members named as participating remotely. Do any members have any declarations of interest or statement of connections? Councillor Campbell.
Good morning, Chair. Thank you. Yeah, it's a statement of connection in a number of these reports, 10, 17 and obviously 23 at the end, just because of my role in Swiss Trans. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Brett.
Yeah, good morning, Chair. Statement connection regarding item 4, the Old Town Hall, Newton Stewart. I'm a member of the club that resides on the first floor of that building.
Thank you. And Councillor Johnson.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. It's, agenda item 24. It's in relation to, it's only for noting 2.5, note the Scottish Government approval funding of the Borderland Natural Capital Programme projects, but I'm one of the trustees of the Solway Firth Partnership. So it is a statement of connection, but it is only a noting item, so I don't think I would need to leave the meeting.
Okay, thank you for that. Any other? Councillor Ingalls.
Yeah, thank you, Chair, and good morning. It's declaration of interest on item 4. As Chair initiative, I'll leave the meeting for that. Thank you.
Thank you for that. Any other members? No, if we go to item 3, the minute of the meeting on the 15th of April 2025, this minute is for approval. Members? The members' agreement? Okay, thank you. If we go to item 4, this report presents a community asset transfer application from Newton Stewart Initiative and their community business plan for a 25-year lease of the ground floor of the Old Town Hall in Newton Stewart under the Community Empowerment Scotland Act 2015. The report includes the recommendations of the Wigton Area Committee, who considered the application at their meeting on the 7th of May 2025. We have Melinda Dolan is available to take any questions on the report, together with other officers as may be required. If I could open this up to members. Councillor Marshall.
Yep, thanks, Chair. Just in relation to 4.11, it states that the potential market rent would be in the region of 3,800 per annum, but obviously the request is just for the ground floor. I'm just wondering if that's for the overall building, because there is the first floor where the snooker club is. And again, just to give a little bit of information why there is no conditions attached, which would normally be conditions attached, and is that because part of the responsibility for the building, i.e. the first floor, is still the responsibility of Dumfries and Galloway Council?
I mean, my
Linda,
colleague...
Could you comment on that, please?
Yes, Chair. And my colleague Colin Freeman's in, he might be able to answer the specific question about the rent. The question as far as the building is concerned is, yes, the building will remain, the wind and water tightness of the building will remain with the council, because there is another club on the top floor. So it's purely the bottom 2 floors that are being requested, and the club have, the Newton Stewart Initiative have asked for that without conditions. That was what was agreed at the area committee. So the normal conditions that apply to any lease will go ahead, but there's no additional conditions on top of that lease.
Colin, would you like to come in on that?
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, just in terms of the the £3,800 potential rental, that is just for the ground floor only, and that was in an officer assessment made about 6 months ago, I think.
Councillor Marshall, does that answer your question? Yes. Thank you. We have Councillor Campbell.
Thanks, Chair. Good morning, members. I'm happy to go with the Wigtown Area Committee's recommendation on option 1. I think it is quite a good business report that's in the back of the papers. Councillor Marshall actually picked up on the point I was going to raise about the cost, because we've got £70,000 again. Is that just for the first floor, or is that for the whole building, as well as the £3,800 per annum? I take it that's been answered as rent for the ground floor only. And the other point I wanted to raise was, because the snooker hall is up the stairs, will this have any sort of adverse effect in that being a separate run business? Thank you.
Melinda or Colin, would you like to respond?
I think Colin might be better.
I can take that one, Chair. In terms of the £70,000 valuation, the property, the whole property, was valued as part of the 5-year rolling programme. So the £70,000 figure is for the whole property. And in terms of having 2 tenants in the one building, I think it's only a positive, because all of the building will now be used and not just one part. So the whole building will be utilised, Chair.
Thank you for that. Any other questions? Councillor Dollar.
Thanks, Chair, and good morning, members. I didn't get a chance to see that when I first opened my mouth at committee this morning. Thank you for the report. Just draw your attention to page 32, 4.132 to 4.142. As has already been mentioned, no issues with the Wigtown Area Committee recommendations at all. And it says without conditions, which is fairly black and white, and it's actually in bold. Well, the without is in bold. And then you go down to 4.142. For clarity, this means no additional conditions for this property other than the council's standard terms and conditions that are necessary to effect a standard full repairing and ensuring lease of 25 years, with DGC retaining responsibility for wind and water tightness. That's fine. 4.13.2 clawback. Legal mechanisms that can be used by council seeking to protect our interests. And Appendix 5, Community Asset Transfer, as an advice note by Community Ownership Support Service in terms of clawback and title conditions, good practice principles. And I'm just asking for transparency and openness. Are there any additional costs going to be coming out of the woodwork once this is agreed, if it is agreed? It looks like it might be agreed. Or a guarantee that there are no surprises in the future from council services, and that the transfer goes through as indicated in 4.141, because historically we have had legal services stepping in with other asset transfers and putting conditions on that we didn't as members know about. So if there are any conditions that we don't know about, one, could we know about them so that report might have to come back, and if there aren't, that's fine, and leave it at that. Thank you.
Thank you. I think I understand that one. Sorry, Vice Chair.
It was just to address, perhaps, I think, Councillor Dorwood. The Town Hall has just undertaken a restructural assessment, and it's been all made wind and watertight again. The outside and exterior has also been taken care of. So in terms of the actual building, I'm not, I wouldn't go as far as to say there was anything to come back and bite us as such, but I'll let Colin or Melinda come in to answer any other elements of that for you, if that's okay. Thanks.
Colin.
Thank you, Chair. In terms of the condition of the building, Councillor O'Connell's correct. We've just spent £108,000 recently on bringing the building back up to condition, so it's fully wind and watertight. And I'll pass over to Linda for any community asset transfer questions.
Linda.
Thank you, Chair. I can't answer the question on behalf of legal regarding fees and charges. My understanding is that the agreement is the community group have asked for the transfer to be for £1, including all fees and charges, and that is what the decision is in front of members today. I don't know if anybody from legal is on the call that could perhaps answer that.
Vlad, can I pass that to you?
Yes, thank you, Chair, and completely understand the question from Councillor Dorward. I think first and foremost, maybe the first report, if I could say, is maybe wasn't as clear cut for members as I would have liked it, because to say that there'll be no conditions is in essence doesn't stand up in terms of a lease by its own terms, or any CAT transfer by its own terms will have very clear conditions attached, and the terms of that are still to be obviously determined, and the kind of signature on these in due course. For any title transfer, obviously what we need to do is obviously all the title checks and everything around that, and that's not within legal services gift, and sometimes the delays for these matters as a result of kind of further title checks and title issues that may arise from time to time. Again, we can't give a categoric answer on how that might pan out. All we can say is that we'll completely and utterly activate and action whatever decision members take today, but we are given a very clear indication of the type of conditions that are as a norm attached with any CAT type transfer, and that protects both the council but it also protects the relevant community groups. We'll do our very best in terms of obviously maintaining cost to a minimum, but there is a subsidy issue here, which is that in essence the council's having to subsidise both the legal work as well as any potential registration, land registration, or any other costs associated with that. So I think from now on, I've asked officers to be much clearer with members and much clearer with the community groups in terms of those costs that are in essence subsidy issues and have not been budgeted for by the council. And therefore, I think moving forward, completely accept Councillor Dorwood's point about transparency and ensuring that any reports in front of members are much clearer around some of these potential costs that may arise as a result of the transaction, whatever that transaction might be. Hopefully that's helpful. In this instance, I think obviously what we'll be looking at is what was already agreed with that community group and taking that forward as best we can. But as I said, to say that there'll be no conditions, that doesn't stack up in terms of any lease, because lease by its own terms are conditions.
Thank you for that full explanation. I think it certainly puts us in a better place. And thank you, Councillor Dorward, for raising the issue. Would you like to come back in?
Thanks, Vlad, for that. But that's what I was saying. What you can't give as a guarantee there'll be no additional charges. And option 1 says no additional charges. That is misleading, and I don't know if the group that is pursuing this NSI are aware of that or will be aware of that, because the option 1 is very clear in what it says and what we're getting back from governance, and that's great, because we're asking for transparency. Is there may be now. We're actually voting for something that says one thing, and we've had governors coming on and saying that might not be the case. That's challenging for us, and I think we need to put a caveat either in there or bring this report back once it's been back to Wigtown Area Committee and or that group to say you will or you may incur additional charges. Are you aware of that? Because I think this is misleading, and I think it's not where we should be. This has happened before, and that's the reason I'm raising it, because groups in my ward came to me and said we weren't aware of that additional charge that we're now being charged, and councillors weren't aware of it either when it came to the area committee and or a reiteration of this, the committee before this committee. So I think we need to be quite clear and put that in. My suggestion would be that we actually pause this and reach out to the area committee and or the NIS to say, are you okay with that? You might incur additional charges, because Wicktown Area Committee did this in good faith that there wouldn't be any additional charges, and now we're hearing that there might be. I think that's really important for clarity purposes. Thank you.
Thank you. I would entirely agree with you. I don't think it's really fit for purpose at this particular stage. I think we do need more clarity in that, and also probably towards the level of possible costs that the organisations may face. So I would certainly propose to defer this if members are in agreement with it. Okay. Thank you for that. Sorry? Vlad, sorry, did you want to come back in?
No, I think, yeah, I absolutely understand the issues that have been raised by Councillor Dorward, and I absolutely agree with the need for that transparency. I guess, obviously, this is kind of quite far down the track in terms of process. If members are minded, and at the moment they're minded to defer, so I don't want to trump that, but it's purely just to put another alternative, which is just the acceptance that any costs associated with this one would be subsidised by the council for this instance, but I think any future similar type cases would need to be transparent from day one in regards to it, but that is purely as an alternative for members. Being in mind that at the moment members are minded to defer.
Thank you. I think I'm quite happy to include that in the deferral as a way forward, that the council will absorb that in this particular instance, but I still feel that it would be safer to defer it and come back when we have the fullest of information. Councillor Campbell.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. I'm just wondering, would it have to go back to the area committee?
I would assume it probably would do. I think that would be, again, the safest way. We've got Councillor Johnson would like to come in.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. It was actually just, I was about to basically say the same as Vlad. If we were concerned about clarity and going forward, I would have been quite happy to propose that no charges meant no charges.
I think at this stage we have actually made the decision to defer. So we'll just go on to the next item. Thank you.
With all due respect, Chair, I don't think you have.
I'll ask governance advice. I would disagree with the convener.
Okay, thank you. There's certainly the discussion on it with the agreement to refer back to Wicktown Area Committee and the group, and then Vlad came in with that additional information.
Without going into the technicalities of it, I did ask the members if members were agreed, and I had received an agreement. There were no motion to the contrary. Okay, if you're quite happy with that, thank you. Now go on to item 5. This report asks members to agree that 3 areas of land, as shown as appendices 1 to 3, in detail within this report are surplus to the requirements of the Economy and Infrastructure Directorate. Karen Brownlee and Colin Freeman are available to take any questions on the report, together with other officers as may be required. I'll now open it up to members. Councillor Marshall.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. It says at 2.3 to note the background, history and current position regarding the areas of land and the 3 in question, and that's illustrated at 4.1 to 4.3. And I note that, you know, whilst 2 of them are I think the ones in Dumfries and Waterbeck are not common good, the land at Dalbeattie is. But really, in each of the descriptions of that, what I'm a little bit more interested is in the history of each of those sites. How did we acquire that, or how is it the council has that land? Did it have a significant use? It's really just a little bit more clarity on each piece of land that we've said is now surplus to requirement, just to get a better understanding why we had it, and it has no kind of strategic importance anymore.
I would assume that would be a very difficult one to answer. There are 3 different pieces of land. Colin, I'll pass that to you.
I like asking difficult questions.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, in terms of each of the pieces of land, we do a full title check on each of the pieces of land before we bring the paper to committee. So, because we can only declare surplus and then dispose of land that we own. So there will be a bit of background within those title checks, which I'm happy to share with members offline or after the meeting, but I don't have that information to hand at the moment, Chair.
Okay, you satisfied with that?
Yeah, happy with that. Just for an interest point of view, you know, why we had these pieces of land, because we seem to have lots of pieces of land. I just want to be sure that, you know, we're giving land away that doesn't have any importance now to D&G.
Thank you for that. Any further questions? Yes, Councillor Slater.
Yes, Chair, thank you. It's regarding the wooded area. What if it's given away as such? What happens to the trees? Are they going to be just cut down for or left? Thank you.
Councillor, yes, sorry. Colin, would you like to respond?
Thank you, Chair. It would be our intention, if we were to dispose of the land, to heavily burden the land to ensure that the trees remain as they are and untouched, Chair.
Thank you. Thank you for that.
Councillor Campbell.
Same question. It's been answered. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you. Any further questions? Councillor Slater, I take it that's a legacy hand? Yeah. Thank you. In that case, I'll move to the recommendations. Are members happy to agree the recommendations at 2.1 to 2.4? Item 6, the Kirkcudbright Bridge update. The report by Assistant Director, Transport and Infrastructure. At the Dumfries and Galloway Council on the 27th of March 2025, members received an urgent report in relation to the immediate closure of the Kirkcudbright Bridge on Friday 21st March 2025 at 7 p.m. This was to all vehicles. I confirmed that from June 2025 the Kirkcudbright Bridge would be a standing item on the economy and infrastructure agenda until further notice, in order to provide regular updates to members given the significant importance of the bridge to the local community. This report is to provide members with an update on the current position in relation to the Kirkcudbright Bridge, and due to its historic nature and the significant importance of the bridge within the community, the update is also provided in relation to the short, medium and long-term future. We've got Karen Brownlee and Duncan MacDonald are available to take any questions on the report, along with other officers as may be required. I'll open this up to members. Councillor McFarlane.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I'm really pleased to see that we've got this here, and as you identified, it is very important to the community in Ward 3, not just in Kirkcudbright itself, but in the outer villages and such like. Firstly, I'd like to thank Lisa, Karen, Duncan and all their team for the work that they've done in relation to this. It has been very, very challenging, and as well as that, there's a lot of technical stuff involved. They've come along to public meetings, they've been happy to engage with the public, and I think that sent out a very positive message, so I thank them for that. First question would be, are we firstly still on schedule for 2nd July? Because obviously that is key. That's a promise that we've made to the community, that would be happening. But then as I work through the report, I've got a number of questions that I'd just like to ask. And if I could do them in sequence, it's at point 4.12, where it talks about the Telford Bridge. And I'm just a little bit concerned in relation to that, because it does suggest that there could be a potential issue in relation to that. So firstly, is there a potential issue, and what is a CS 451 structural review? So if we could park that one, if we then go to 4.20, it talks about previously when there's been issues with the bridge and they've been identified. It says in the 70s that an attempt was made to secure national funding, but that was unsuccessful. So do we understand what that is and why that was unsuccessful? Because that might impact on how we go forward. I'm very happy to see that we have got a commitment to sort of progressing a replacement bridge. So that is obviously good news for the community and for the area. And lastly, on 4.25, we're talking about the reopening of the bridge and the sort of process and the structures that are going to be in place there. And we're going to have some temporary lights replaced by permanent traffic lights to control. Can you explain to me what the difference is and what would be the benefit of having the permanent ones? Thank you.
I'll put you over to Duncan for that one.
Thank you, Chair. Thanks, Councillor McFarlane, for your questions and for your positive feedback. The reopening date is still, as indicated, this Wednesday, 2nd July. That's the date that we're all working towards. The item 412, the structural review is required. Essentially, because we did the work to Tongland Bridge last year, so one of the intermediate piers, there was a bit of bulging on it, which we repaired. As far as that goes, we'll now do a review of that work and determine whether we then need to carry out a further assessment, load carrying assessment of the structure, in accordance with the design manual for roads and bridges. That's the various documents that are quoted. We would intend to do that internally within the team. Stephen McKerley, who you know, principal engineer, played a big part in the meetings that you referred to, and a lot of what's in the document today. I think it's worth pointing out that Stephen played a big part. A lot of the text in the report comes from Stephen, and he'll be heading up the work for Tongland as well. 4.2, yes, there was an attempt back in the 70s to secure money, and I think it was back in the I was going to say Scottish Office, but I think it went up in the Development Department. It was called back then Scottish Development Department, and it was unsuccessful. We've been making inquiries with our legal team as to the background to that and the justification for that failure to secure the funding, and that's part of our consideration going forward, looking at all those options, all those avenues that we could explore to try and secure funding for the future for a new bridge. 425, the temporary lights versus permanent. So the basic difference is that the permanent set will be wired in, basically with its own power supply, no reliant on temporary batteries to operate the initial set of lights, which will be akin to what you would expect at roadworks, and they will be manned for a period of time as well. But the aim is to move forward to a permanent set. We didn't want to push the button for the permanent set straight off. We feel there could be a bit of bedding in period for this configuration, and we might want to learn from that, and exactly where that final set of permanent lights goes will be determined from that initial scoping piece of work once the initial set of lights are installed. Hopefully that covers the various points you've raised, Councillor McFarlane.
Thank you, Duncan. Karen, did you want to come in now?
Thanks very much, Chair, and through yourself, Duncan, thank you. Thank you for that. Just wanted to give members, I guess, the confidence and the assurance that the officers are working to Wednesday, 2nd of July for reopening. In actual fact, the roads team are starting, out on the bridge as we speak. They're out there today. The equipment has arrived, so we are on schedule, and we're continuing to work together to I guess, provide that assurance that we will achieve that date. And again, I just wanted to stress in terms of the Telford Bridge, so members will see within the report that there's 9 bridges, including Kirkcudbright Bridge, in and around Kirkcudbright. So there's additional assessments underway, and in relation to the Telford Bridge, that's to provide members with the assurance that through Duncan's team they're progressing as per the legislation and the code to ensure that they can continue to be sustainable. So I just wanted to add that. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor McFarlane. I take it that answers your points.
Yes, thank you for that, Chair. The only other thing I would ask is, do we have a plan for when we open on the 2nd of July for when one vehicle invariably gets stuck in the chicane?
Duncan.
Yep. So we, as I mentioned earlier, the set of lights that we put on, the temporary set of lights, initially we'll have them manned. So we'll have personnel on site to help with traffic movement. Hopefully we won't get anybody stuck. We've got a kind of programme of information to come out. We use the Kirkcudbright Bridge webpage to cover quite a lot of that in terms of what a compliant vehicle looks like and maybe what a non-compliant vehicle might look like, so that the public get to know that. We also repeat our letter drop which we did to the community of Kirkcudbright last October, and they're up to, prior to that, and they're up to the works when we closed the bridge then to do inspection work. And again, Steve McKellar will pick that up, and we can build on what we did last time. I think it was well received, the letter drop that we did then, so we'll do that again and get the message out about what vehicles can use the bridge, and it'll be a change obviously, but hopefully we put enough advance notice and information out there, plus a lot of new signage, permanent signage is planned, and it's coming in, which will convey to the public again what size of vehicles can and cannot use the bridge. So we're also talking about the 3-ton limit. It's also worth mentioning we're looking at a 2.3 metre width restriction and also a 5.6 length restriction. That 5.6 will eliminate, prohibit any cars with trailers. We just have to keep it tight so we don't get a larger overweight vehicle going through at the expense of letting smaller vehicles with trailers and the like through. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for that, Duncan. Councillor Marshall.
Thanks, Chair. Yeah, it was really just to commend the work being done by Duncan and his team, particularly on the short term, to try and get that bridge open again. And I think you've probably just asked one of my questions, which was regards to the control of vehicles across that, and the physical restrictions against any vehicles over 3 tonne actually being able to actually access the bridge. And I think you've more or less confirmed that would be really difficult to achieve. So that's kind of give a reassurance on that. I'm just wondering as well, will there be cameras? Is there cameras there at the moment, or is the intention to put cameras there as well so that you can monitor the traffic over the bridge and ensure that there's no abuse of the use of the bridge?
Duncan.
Thank you, Chair. Thanks, Councillor Marshall, for your questions. You're quite right. The physical limitations are by way of the chicane entering as you enter that. So it's a tortuous alignment at either end to get on. That should eliminate prevent any larger vehicle getting onto there. It shouldn't be there. We've had to go to those measures because it has to be deemed to be self-enforcing. So we can't rely on Police Scotland to police it for us. So we've got to do that ourselves. So that physical constraint basically determines that a larger overweight vehicle should not get on the bridge. And we've done that by physical trials within our depots with this layout, and also we've simulated it with computer models as well. We're not including any CCTV at the minute. There isn't CCTV down that section. We have used CCTV in the past to do traffic counts. It's something that we've been discussing this week actually as a potential. But it would be for us initially, for us to use that and see how well it's working. We're hoping that with the manned lights and our staff being down there at the outset to see how things go, we'll pick up quickly if there's any kind of weaknesses in the system and how we kind of manage that going forward. But CCTV might well be a consideration.
Thank you for that. Councillor Barretti.
Thank you, Chair. Page 79, 4.3.3. It says here, I was looking at this, and it said, when required after a severe storm, site-based visual inspection. 2 parts to this question. Does that imply or hint of heightened risk in the event of a severe storm? And what would actually what kind of category we'd be looking at severe storm? Now, if we take, for instance, Storm Airwin, which was probably one of the most severe, if we have warning of, say, 5, 6, 7 days of a severe weather event, what measures are going to be put in place vis-a-vis whether the bridge will be kept open or whether the council will take action to look at limiting the traffic or stopping the traffic during these events.
Thank you. I think it's fairly common sense that the fact that we will have a rigorous inspection of a bridge that's already been declared as being weak. And it's only right that we continue with this inspection, especially after any storm. I think it'd be difficult to actually define exactly what's going to happen should a storm be present for several days. Obviously, it would need to be depending on the result of that inspection. But I'll pass it over to Duncan.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Councillor Veretti. So the special inspections is included there because it is one of the inspections that we carry out routinely, well, as routine as storms can be. So after Storm Irwin, we were out checking all the key bridges around the region that could be subject to scour, because scour is a major issue, normally for us anyway, on our bridge network. After a major weather event, we were going to get increased flows down our rivers. So that's what we do routinely. And this would be no different to the Kirkcudbright Bridge going forward. What those measures might be, if they were to be measured, we'd need to, as the Chair said, we'd need to kind of judge that going forward. There is going to be a substandard management plan put in place for the bridge because it is substandard in its nature, and that document will contain quite a lot of information around how it's to be managed in the future. And I would imagine that it will include some sort of information on inspections, what will be routine inspections out with extreme weather events, and if we do get an extreme weather event, what we need to do.
Thank you for that. Councillor Dorward.
Thanks, Chair. And can I just repeat what members have said? Like, well done to the teams that have been involved in this. It's been a sterling job. It's great to know that it's going to be the bridge is going to be back in action. I've got another. That being that, you've also noted on page 81, 4.12, the Thomas Telford Bridge, that fantastic structure that's been, I don't know how old it is, hundreds of years old, has had a repair and requires some more attention. And I'm just thinking, in our region we have very small, narrow roads that we're not going to expand because that would just be impossible. We can't even get the A75 dual, so we're not going to try anything else. They are what they are, but the traffic is much heavier. We've got HGVs, you've got like lorries, trucks and tractors that are the size of houses now going along them. And all, great for agriculture, great for our farmers, but the roads aren't designed for that, neither are our bridges. So we are where we are with that. That's it. But I think that presents another aspect in terms of almost not a project, but a programme for that area. Because if that bridge went, and the Kirkcudbright Bridge went, that area is totally cut off. And massive diversions would have to be in place to the detriment of the fishermen, the farmers, the arts community, everybody in that area, local traders. So, comes to the big question. I know that MSP Finlay Carson asked John Swinney in Scottish Parliament, is he going to give any money to us? And John Swinney said no, because you've got enough already, which is a patent lie, but that's his response, because councils have enough to spend on their roads. Really, we don't. So I think that was great, Finlay Carson asking that question, but can I ask if the council have officially approached Scottish Government, i.e. the Transport Secretary, to ask for assistance with this? Because if we are looking at the Thomas Telford Bridge and the Kirkcudbright Bridge and looking at, there's further work to be, or studies to be done on the Thomas Telford Bridge, which could cost money, we don't know yet, and we're trying to future-proof this for the area. That's almost like a massive programme here, and not just a wee, couple of repairs to a structure, which will involve lots and lots of money. Our capital budget is already stretched. So from that perspective, it would be really useful, if we haven't already done so, to formally write to Scottish Government to ask for assistance with this when we get the detail worked out. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for that. Where I agree with most of your comments, certainly the last one, when you mentioned that when the time comes when we do come with a firm proposal on a way forward, I think that's right. I think we should be requesting the funding from the Scottish Government. I believe there have been some form of discussion at the early stages as well. I think in relation to I think it's 200 years old, the Thomas Telford Bridge. I remember reading it on the plaque on my way over to the closure of the first one, that it seems to be coping well with that. But I think that that's mirrored right across the region as part of a much bigger picture, and I think we should be looking at that collectively. When in my police days, a 32-ton Arctic was the maximum. We're now into the 40s, and that will no doubt continue to rise. So I think that it's maybe two separate issues. The Kirkcudbright one, I think it's been, I echo the comments that were made. I think the staff have been excellent. They responded very quickly to the closure, but also to the area surrounding it, just to make sure that Kirkcudbright remains open. The business support that's been given in the area, and to the Kirkcudbright community itself. I've been very, very impressed with how keen they are to promote that they are open for business. And I think they've got to be commended in that. It's something that it should remain a council priority as far as Kirkcudbright is concerned, but the long-term funding, I think, needs to be considered region-wide, and not only just for Kirkcudbright. Thank you. That seemed an awful long response to your question. Councillor Condon.
Thanks, Chair. No, I totally agree with that. I think that we have done something about looking at funding formula, and that letter's gone off to Scottish Government to look at getting more money in for Dumfries and Galloway Road through the funding formula, which is a motion that we raised at the last full council. And hopefully that'll bring some additional money into the region, which does have the third biggest road network in Scotland and doesn't get the third biggest funding. But I'm more concerned about this specific area at the moment in terms of prioritising, and also if we do have to fund restructuring for either bridge, that's going to really dig into our capital asset project programme, which is already challenged because we don't have the funding. And I think from that perspective, what I'm asking is, could we actually do the preempting work perhaps and write to the Transport Secretary? We will be, here's the issues, lay them out, and we will be in touch about funding. What are your thoughts on that? I think we need to lay the groundwork first, Chair. That's my perspective, and I would suggest that we do that. Thank you.
I've no real difficulty with that, providing it's not specific. Obviously, we have no idea what the level of funding would be, and it's important that as Kirkcudbright, without a doubt, is a priority. It's got very limited access, and one of the main arterial routes into it has been cut off. So I think that's important. I'll pass you to Lisa.
Thank you, Chair. So there will be a report coming to this committee in September, providing more detail around our Bridges and Structures programme and priorities. So whilst there perhaps is an opportunity to write now, it may be better to do it in September once we've presented that in terms of the key priorities across the region.
Thank you, and that was far more eloquently put than I did. But I think that's probably the best way forward, and if you're in agreement, we certainly will need to consider that in September.
I think I'm not going to be, hopefully nothing happens in the interim, because we've got recess and in report. That's the horrible thing about council work. It does take a long time to go forward, and the recess is there, and things go on. We could have an emergency meeting, couldn't we? How exciting would that be? So that's fine if we are assured at the moment that, and I know you can't be 100% assured that nothing will happen, but the business as usual will continue until September. I'm not asking you for 100% assurance, don't worry about that. And this is redone, because I think it's really important that we get some guarantee of funding from Scottish Government, especially as they're spending millions during the A9 and nothing down here. Thank you.
Karen, you'd like to come in?
Thank you very much, Chair, through yourself, and thank you, Councillor Dorwood. So I guess I won't cover what Lisa's already confirmed about the report in September, so that will lay out our policy and in terms of our inspections and current budget associated with the 1,500 structures that we've got across the region, and actually the requirement going forward to ensure that the risk is reduced for the Council. What I can give assurance about at the moment is through the capital investment report, which is later on in the agenda. Members at an earlier meeting this year did agree 1.2 million allocation towards the structures budget. There's a specific allocation of 175,000 against Kirkcudbright at this moment in time. And that will cover not just Kirkcudbright Bridge, but the other assets around it. So for the time being, I'm comfortable with how that's sitting. But going forward, you know, I think there'll be a planned approach between bringing a future report to this committee in terms of the policy and all the structures, as well as capital investment as a whole, in terms of looking at the sort of major projects and all capital projects which are due to come to full council in October. So we'll look at it as a whole. Thank you.
Thank you for that. Councillor Slater.
Yes, thank you, Chair. It's just a question for Duncan regarding the failure of the bridge and it being a concrete bridge. What actually caused it? Is the bridge full of rebar? Is that what the problem is, and the rebar actually deteriorating? And that's what's causing the weakness in the bridge. Another point about bridges, I think it's, in some ways, with this happening, it's opened up a more general view of how to look at all our bridges now. And I think that when you're talking about scouring and that, I think maybe if the Devagilla Bridge was cleared of all the trees in one of its arches, that's it. It's really, really bad. It's becoming the archway is virtually possible for water to actually flow through it now. So that would be maybe a good start to some maintenance scheduling, if that's possible. Thank you.
Thank you. I think this paper is solely on Kirkcudbright, and where we recognise our difficulties elsewhere, we'll need to deal with these as they come along. I've got no other registered speakers. Oh, Councillor Bretty.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I realise that from what you said earlier about waiting till September and report, but if we do that, can we also take into account that if we are going to lobby for funding, we should lobby also Westminster, because the A75, although we've had surveys on it, when traffic gets impacted on the A75 and in that entire area, it's a Euro route, so it's materials going from Northern Ireland to England. What happens in Wigtonshire, Stewartry and Kirkcudbrightshire is obviously a lot less. So is that possible?
It may be possible in September when we'll consider that. I think the A75 is a trunk route and is part of Transport Scotland, and I think that's got to be our first point of contact. But we'll have this discussion, no doubt, in September. I've got no other speakers that I could see. Before I move to the recommendations, I think I'd just like to reaffirm my commitment to Kirkcudbright that we are taking this as a matter of priority. We admire them for their spirit. They've really come out fighting and to make sure that Kirkcudbright is open. And I think that the proactive response that we have had through the media and to attending public meetings, etc., has paid dividends. With that, I'll move to the recommendations. Are members happy to agree the recommendations at 2.1 to 2.5? Item 10. I'm way ahead of myself. Okay. Right, members are asked to consider the consultation draft Portpatrick Conservation Area Character Appraisal and Management Plan Guidance and the draft Dumfries and Galloway Landscape Sensitivity Study Small Wind Turbines Planning Guidance document, both of which will be published for consultation if agreed. Members are asked to consider and adopt the Lochside Master Plan as planning guidance to the Local Development Plan 2. We've got Stuart McMillan is available to take any questions on the report, along with Mizzy Marshall, Fraser James and Jamie Little as may be required. I'll open this up to members. Councillor Dashburn.
Thanks, Chair. Good morning. Few wee questions. Number one, page 127, under General Management Matters, it mentions a few vacant and derelict sites there. Are they on our vacant and derelict land registry? if we could just do it maybe question by question, Chair. Thanks.
It'd probably easier doing it that way. Jamie or Stuart, would you like to respond?
Might be helpful if Councillor Dashford could you just repeat the section that you're drawing our attention to?
Yeah, no
just,
bother.
just catching up on the papers. Thank you.
Yeah, no. So 127 General Management Matters in the bottom corner mentions that there's this site on Hill Street in Portpatrick and near the harbour on Main Street. So are they on our vacant and derelict land registry? And are we looking at those sites? Thanks.
Jamie?
Yeah, thanks, Chair. Thanks, Councillor, for the question. I will need to go away and double check that and can come back to you following the meeting. If they haven't been assessed for submission to the vacant and derelict land register, we'll certainly take an action away to do that.
Thank you. Jamie, Councillor Dashford, before you go into your second question, could you give me an indication of how many questions you have, just so that I can manage this?
2, maybe 3, but very, very brief, Chair.
I'm not trying to stifle, it's just to give me an idea. Okay,
Thank you.
I'd like to go into your next question.
Page 289 is about our consultation mandate in Appendix 3. It mentions Portpatrick Community Council at the bottom, so that Community Council is currently disestablished. So I'm just wondering what the other groups that the service is aware of that they will be contacting instead locally. Thank you.
Jamie, are you going to respond? Stuart?
That's perhaps one that Mizzy could potentially pick up as well. But if she doesn't, then we can also just double check with the local arrangements that we can make. But I wonder if Mizzy has got anything to add to this.
Yeah, the only group I've managed to contact directly already is the Harbour group. So his complete name, sorry, escapes me at the moment. But if there are other groups in the area, there definitely are other groups that may have interest in the conservation area, even if they're not directly in the conservation area as such. So we'll have to look into that, because Portpatrick Community Council, as you say, is not sitting.
Thank you for that. Councillor Dashford, perhaps if you have information of more groups, you could pass that in to Mizzy.
Happy to do so, Chair. I think it's the Harbour Trust that the officer's on about, so yeah, I'm happy to pass on that information. And finally, Chair, I'm just wondering, what's the connection between this and LDP3? So this is under LDP2, but if we're doing LDP3 soon, are we going to have to do this again for LDP3, or what's the process around that? Thank you.
I don't know who's going to answer that, Stuart.
No, thank you very much. So, yes, Councillor Dashford. So this guidance has been prepared under the auspices of LDP2 and is adopted as part of that. There's a process within LDP3 to seek the continuation of supplementary guidance that has been adopted through the previous systems into the new plan, but we'll need to be explicit about that when we produce the LDP3.
Thank you. Thanks for indulging me, Chair.
No problem. Councillor Stevenson.
Thank you, Chair. It is on the Lochside Master Plan as well. No, that's in my ward. This is the first time I've seen the plan as a whole, as councillors weren't allowed to be involved in it, because obviously we would have to vote for it, which is fair enough. I would like to know the huge amount of work that's been carried out within the plan, you know, the community involvement when there wasn't enough people attending consultations. We made them go out and knock doors, so it was nice to see an officer knocking a door instead of us elected members. However, maybe naively on my part, I assumed that we would have another engagement event once the final plan came forward, but at this point we're being asked to adopt the Lochside Master Plan without actually going back out to the public as a final engagement, consultation, however you want to put it. Is it possible that it can go back out? And I do know that there is an event happening in July instead of that being a launch event. Is it possible to make that an engagement event so the community can at least attend it? There's actually planning in here for places like Barnhill that didn't realise they were actually part of the Lochside regeneration plan. Thank you.
Okay. Jamie?
Yeah, thanks, Chair. So, thanks, Councillor Stevenson, for the question. Obviously, the community engagement has been significant to develop the Lochside Master Plan that's come here in front of members. What's been highlighted within the Master Plan is really a snapshot of that consultation, but what has come back from residents has very much been fed into the Master Plan as it is under a number of different sections, the housing, house types that are required for the future, green space, connectivity with the rest of the town. We do have an additional, more detailed report and summary on the consultation events, which I'll be happy to share with members. As Councillor Stevenson's mentioned, it has been significant. Over 1,300 residents have engaged with the process. And there have been efforts through door knocking, mailings, to try and ensure that everybody within the Lochside area has been given an opportunity to consult on the master plan. The local delivery group that's also been established includes local residents, community anchor groups, and they have had opportunity to feed into this throughout the whole process. So they have been engaging and leading on that from the community's perspective. The intention of the report in front of members here today is that the Local Development Plan 2 agrees this as guidance in terms of future developments that come forward in Lochside. And what would then follow is a number of separate planning applications for each individual development that would move forward under the terms of this master plan. There will be follow-up consultation events for all of those planning applications, including further community engagement and work with the local delivery group. So there will be ongoing consultation with local residents, and that will be done both through the process of the local delivery group, but through the formal planning process. Just in terms of the event at the start of July, I know that working very closely with Wheatley Home South, they are hoping to submit planning applications in the very near future to the council, and any further delay in agreeing the master plan will push back the delivery of housing in the area, which I think is what hopefully everybody's looking to see.
Thank you for that. I think you just answered the question I was going to ask. Is there any risks associated with this? One point, Councillor Stevenson mentioned that she was unable to see the information because ultimately it was going to come to a vote. Could you explain why that would be necessary?
The intention of the local delivery group has been very much to have the local voices, the local people represented on there. It's been felt that they were really the people that we needed to engage and drive this forward. What we have been doing is trying to engage with local ward members through regular newsletter updates, informing them of the consultation events that are being held. They've been invited to a number of the other specific consultation events, and there's been engagement directly with members, particularly through ward meetings. So we're hoping that members have had an opportunity to reflect and to comment on the approach we're looking to take. But it's always been the approach that was set out by members through earlier committee reports that this would very much be a community-led approach.
Okay, Councillor Stevenson.
Yeah, thank you, Chair, for letting me back in. Now, obviously, as the councillor that brought the emergency housing motion forward, I don't particularly want to delay any house building. Like I said, my concern is there hasn't been an engagement on this final document that's come here today. Now, I've had residents contact me to say that, they didn't realise that bits of Barnhill would be in it. That there's just a few other things. There's obviously issues around the Max I site, which we thought would happen much quicker than what it has within this document. Nothing happens on that site until at least 2033. And then there's been issues raised around flooding plains and things. And I just think that if we're going to take the community along with us, then we need to at least engage them on this final document before we actually sign it off. And I don't think that it shouldn't delay any house building on the two parts mentioned, because that's already in place anyway. That just needs to go to consultation. Thank you.
Jamie, would you like to come back?
Yeah, thanks, Chair. Thanks, Councillor Stevenson. The original planning application notice that was issued by the Wheatley Home South in terms of the master plan did include the boundary that's set out in the master plan, so did highlight that Barnhill was going to be included. The the intention of any planning applications that come forward will be that any neighbours that are impacted by potential developments being considered through the planning process will specifically be notified when that further detail is there, and that will be their opportunity to consider whether or not they want to object or support the proposals that are moving forward. Appreciate the comments about Max High and the desire to see that come forward sooner. That's also a position that I think the council officers and the officers at Wheatley Home South share. This is really in terms of managing the delivery of housing right across Dumfries and Galloway, looking at what resources we actually have available through both the Affordable Housing Supply Programme and Wheatley Home South's own finances. I did meet with the officers from Wheatley Home South just yesterday to discuss the final master plan in one last final detail, and they have confirmed that they will be constantly reviewing their own business plan funding to see if there is any opportunity to bring some of these developments within Lochside further forward in terms of their programme.
Thank you. Councillor Stevenson.
Thank you, Chair, for indulging me. So can it be that this event that's happening in July be an engagement event with the public, you know, to at least listen to what some of their concerns happen to be? And I know one of my concerns with this is that if we agree that this is part of the local development plan, and then a planning application comes forward, 9 times out of 10 you hear, oh, well, it's already in the plan, so this is, you know, part of the plan. So at that point, would the residents be able to say, we completely accept it's in the plan, but situations have changed and we do not want it anymore? And that will be taken into consideration for planning. And the other thing is, this event that's happening, can it happen in the evening? Because there is a considerable amount of residents in Lochside and Barnhill that's now in it that actually work. Thank you.
Jamie, how do you feel about this being a consultation event as well as the... I don't see how the two can marry together, to be honest.
Yeah, the launch event is still part of the engagement that will happen around the Lochside regeneration. We still want to ensure that the community are given every opportunity to engage with the process going forward. And this is the local development plan guidance here that's being set out, or that we're recommending to members to agree, is really looking at it being guidance. It's not going to say absolutely there's going to be housing development, and they will still need to go through a planning process, which is at the very point through a formal process and also through the standards we've agreed with Wheatley Home South around Lochside through our own community engagement principles, we will be looking to take forward. A delay in agreeing it will impact on the delivery of homes. That's the point I have to make very clear. It's obviously a member decision today whether or not they agree the plan, but I do just have to highlight that Wheatley Home South are very ready and willing to now move forward with the planning process. They want to do that in consultation with the local community. In terms of the event in July, although we haven't yet shared it with elected members, we do have a placeholder in the diary and bookings for a venue that will be, the meeting will be from 3 till 7 o'clock in the evening.
Okay, thank you. Where I fully understand that any delay may affect planning in the future, do we have assurance that this document, a guidance document, is a living document that and subject to public consultation, it can be changed?
Yeah, that's correct, Chair. It's very much a high-level framework. The absolute detail is still to follow. There's been a lot of work gone into this master plan, particularly through the consultation, but it is very much still to be followed with the detail, which will allow the public to consider whether or not they wish to support, object, or go through the sort of planning processes we'd expect with any further planning application that came forward. We're really keen to make sure the community are heavily involved in this, and it really has been community-led. So we'll ensure that the engagement event in July very much gives people an opportunity to understand what the process is going to be from here on.
Councillor Stevenson, with these timings for the meeting and with the assurances that it is a living document that it can be changed in future, are you quite satisfied with that?
I'm satisfied if the engagement event is a full engagement event and, you know, residents can come and ask that you know, what's going on with Max High, about the flooding issues that they've raised, and obviously the infrastructure issues and the issues around Barnhill. Thank you.
Thank you. It does seem a sensible approach to have them both. Stuart, you'd like to come in?
Thank you very much, Chair. I think if it's helpful, we can also just look at the guide itself, and in particular the initial paragraphs and sections of the master plan report, and drop in some explicit commentary, actually a bit of guidance about how the guidance will be applied. That can clarify, therefore, that there can be some evolution to the document over the course of the planning applications that come forward. Yeah.
Thank you for that. Councillor Slater.
Yes, thank you, Chair. It's a question for Jamie. It's on page 316. It's good to see the enhancement of green spaces is being put forward and looking for new green spaces. Scottish Water just had a big article in the Times asking councils to create more green spaces. But it's interesting to see the fact that we have a beautiful green space. It's called the Green Sands. It's got mature trees, it's got wildlife, it's got a rookery, but that's going to be taken away.
Councillor Slater, I'll need to interrupt you here. I'm sorry. We've got the specific document in front of us. We cannot carry on to another issue. I appreciate you're passionate about that issue.
No, it's green spaces.
But it's
and
not.
And we're taking a green space away.
Councillor Slater,
okay.
Reference to the green sands or the white sands is not appropriate during this paper. If you, I don't mind you asking a question if it's relevant to the report. Do you have anything to come back in? No. Councillor Brett.
Thank you, Chair. It's in relation to Appendix 2, and it's the wind energy landscape sensitivity study, smaller wind turbines. I have to say it is a fantastic piece of work. It is immense. I will be reading it for the next 4 months, I think. But it does refer to clearly small wind turbines and the categories above the small wind turbines area. So where we see on page 279, which does in fact tell you turbines up to 50 metres, there's several questions. One, given the detail that's in this report, are the authors expecting, as they've said in the report, the reciting of decommissioned turbines from other locations to the region, that's right across Dumfries and Galloway, what that might be? But also, I noticed on page 286 and 287, there's cumulative issues they've put down here. Are they looking at this being the key factor in determining whether people will be able to put up turbines, because it is something that over the next few years we will potentially see across the whole of Dumfries and Galloway?
Stuart, you like to respond to that?
I think I'll bring Fraser in on some of the detail of this, but I think the report, both the covering report and the guidance note that Councillor Bretti refers to just does talk about the fact that these smaller turbines, solar turbine heights, there's not a particular now economic case for these being used commercially in large scale power generators. So these are likely to be the recycling of first generation, second generation sort of wind farms in the landscape, and would probably, most likely, be being used by individual sort of either farm estates, communities, etc. So they're essentially setting up and recycling them. So that's probably the purpose of them. It's an area that we are probably uncertain about in terms of just how much activity there will be and how much interest in that there will be, but that's likely to be the sort of applications that will come forward. It's those types of circumstances that will come. I'm happy to bring Fraser in though in terms of if he can comment on some of those issues around the cumulative impact issues that you raised on page 286, 287.
Fraser, can I ask you to respond?
Yeah. Yeah, on the Stuart makes a good point, but we can't be set on the reuse of older turbines. To come back to question, one of the points in the question, we can't be certain where those turbines will be sourced from, but when it comes to older turbines, there is an insurance factor as well. Cumulative issues. Mentioned in the report, the large turbine report's already gone through as supplementary guidance. We did have changes to the cumulative issues in that during the course of the consultation, so we'll have a look at what the connections are and if any other comments come in for the consultation. We'll need to report this back to committee once the consultation is done and we've had a chance to look at any amendments.
Thank you for that, Councillor Berry.
Yeah, just on the back of that, it's I suppose it's going to be something that we're going to be looking at quite frequently over the next 10 years as technology changes within this sector, and the way that the communities particularly may well take advantage of small-scale wind turbines or anything else. Are you likely to be re-looking at this, not on a major scale, but are you likely to be tweaking this type of report over the next, say, 2, 3, 4 years?
Well, once it's approved, once it comes back to committee and is approved for as guidance, we'd probably have to come back to committee to make any further amendments. There is the wider context of LDP3, and we'll have to look at energy policy more broadly when we do that, and we'll speak to members about that once we have workshops set up and things.
Thank you for that. Members, I don't have any other registered speakers. In that case, I'll move to the recommendations. Are members happy to agree the recommendations at 2.1 to 2.5? On to item 6, this report updates members on the progress that's been made by community bodies across the region in preparing local place plans. It also asks members to agree 2 local place plans to the Register of Local Place Plans as they meet the legislative requirements. Stuart McMillan and Shelley Bell are available to take any questions on the report, together with other officers as may be required. Members, I'll open up to questions. Councillor Slater. Thank you for that. No, I've no... Oh, Councillor Brett.
Thank you, Chair. It's mostly an observation and a comment. I'm glad to see that Pen Punt have managed to finally get in the registration and the police plan going forward. So I look forward to further improvements on this and advances. Thank you.
Thank you for that. I have no other speakers. If I can go to the recommendations. Are members happy to agree the recommendations at 2.1 to 2.3? Thank you. Item 9. Following on from the 4th of February 2025 meeting of this committee, members are asked to consider and note the review of private water supply regulation and agree to the proposed new fee structure. Members will recall that the February report highlighted concerns raised by the Food Standards Scotland and recognised the importance of driving forward the actions in the action plan to improve performance. So I'm pleased that this report is here to be presented today. It provides options to the members to consider that will enable the service to increase its resources and to make positive progress on the Food Standards Scotland Action Plan. I feel that I must say that I've personally visited Sandra Hartness and her team on a few occasions over the past year or so and must comment on their commitment to delivering a high-quality service, especially considering the pressure of the ever-increasing workload and its demands that they face. We've got Sandra Hartness is available today to take any questions on the report, together with other officers as may be required. I'll open it up to members. Councillor Marshall.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. Yeah, agree with the preferred option with regards to option, I think it's 2. But it also just identifies, you know, we are in a situation now where, you know, we have to fulfill our legal obligations, you know, so there is a need to increase the fees. But by just increasing them by this level, it still leaves us about 1 FTE short. But it's better than actually putting the fees up even more. So I'm quite happy with option 2, and my group are. The only thing is, you know, there is the ability to close the gap on this additional 1 person. We would need to fulfil that if we implemented the proposed fees at 4.24. I'm quite happy, you know, to proceed on that basis, but I just wondered, is it realistic, you know? So I just wanted a feel of how many a year of expedited samples would we normally actually receive in. It does state that there is quite a lot of people, of course, they want to sell properties, etc., do need to have that service. But I'm just wondering if we implemented these new fees, which is also an increase on the sample for regulated supply and unregulated type B supply, but also this expedited sample, would we be able to realistically meet the shortfall?
Sandra, can I ask you to respond to that?
Thank you, Chair, and Councillor Marshall. Yes, it's kind of untested what the impact of the additional staff will do, because the review has looked at the capabilities and efficiencies and effectiveness of the staffing as we have. However, the work is done kind of piecemeal to some respect by a number of different staff, and there are efficiencies that could be achieved by the newer model going forward, where we would have more dedicated staff. Therefore, we should be able to plug the gap by the new staff being able to be a bit more efficient because they can focus on that work. And also, in addition, the new fees for the expedited work, for example, would help. So I think it is realistic that we should be able to bridge that gap. Yes.
Good. Yes.
Just on clarity, is that with the, you know, in 4.2, the increase to 5, just over 5 FTEs, or with the 6 that would be that stated is required?
That would be the increase to 5. As I say, the way we're currently doing things, looking back, we would require 6 to achieve that work. However, going forward with focused specialised staff, and also we have a new system, a new database, and we're introducing some automation as well. So all of those improvements together, I think it's realistic that we should just about manage to fill the gap with the 5 FTE.
Thank you, Sandra. Councillor Dashburn.
Thank you, Chair. Page 448 at the top. So we're looking to implement these new fees for cost recovery for things like missed appointments and such. And the exemption would be unless under exceptional circumstances. Just wondering, how are we defining exceptional circumstances and how are we administrating that? Thank you.
I think a definition of that would be quite difficult. Obviously, they vary, but Sandra, would you like to come back?
Thank you. Yes, that would be decided on a case-by-case basis. We would listen and we would have to make a judgment according to the circumstances. We do get, actually, unfortunately, quite a lot of missed appointments just because, you know, people didn't really have a reason. You know, they didn't have good reason, and they would be when we would charge the new fee. But if someone had a medical appointment or a bereavement or something else that's a significant issue, then we would listen to that and make a judgment, and probably would err on the side of sympathy and not charge the fee if there was an excuse given.
Okay, no, that's great. Thanks, Sandra. And just on top of that, risk assessment consultation. So we're proposing £200 for a consultation. What does the consultation involve, and how long does it take, and such? And is it worth £200? Thank you.
Sandra?
That would be probably up to about half a day's worth of time with the person who is involved, with the person making the inquiry, who's responsible for the private water supply. This did come about as part of the stakeholder discussions that we had, and a risk assessment document is a very complex and long document, and for many people it was just too complicated and too complex. The law requires that we specify certain information, so it has to be complex and a bit unwieldy, I suppose. But it would have a one-to-one with the officer who had done it on the premises with the person where the risk assessment has been done, to explain any inquiries that they had, to explain it in their terms, to make it more useful for them. So each one would be different.
Okay, thank you. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you. Do you have any other speakers? Councillor Durbin.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you for the report. Thank you for the honesty in it. And it's not a comment on officers and how they work. They're doing a really good job with reduced resourcing and trying to cover every area. We've got particular challenges in Dumfries and Galloway with the water supply, private water supplies. And I'd just like to draw members' attention to 3.3 on page 442. And it's about number of although most of the water is very clean and pure due to our rurality, approximately 20% of the 30% of samples, it's a fifth, taken are found to be non-compliant for bacteria levels. While many residents will have built up a level of immunity and be unaffected, babies, the elderly and people in poor health may have less immunity, as many visitors may in the area because they're not from here and haven't built up the level of immunity drinking water from whatever private. Now it could be seen as it's honest, and I do appreciate that. But that's really concerning that we don't have staff to take a hold of that, because it could actually affect people quite badly. And that is not about officers, it's about the levels of resourcing that we have to deal with this. We shouldn't be relying on building up immunity levels either as mitigation for non-compliant bacteria levels or the fact we haven't got enough staff to do things. The proposals to increase staff are laudable, so option 2 is a good option, no issues with that, as is the financing model. But how confident are we of actually employing these skilled people in this region when we have the well-trailed issues of lack of housing, infrastructure and investment? That's the issue. I think that we can have all the fantastic models that we like. It's getting experts in here to actually do the job that's the challenge. Thank you.
Sandra, would you like to respond to that?
Thank you, Chair and Councillor Dorbin. Yes, we don't expect to be able to employ experts. If we were able to, then that would be great. But what we are doing as part of our people plan is we have a grow your own model on the go, where we are training staff within the service who may wish to step into these posts. And also there is quite a significant amount of training available. We've used it. We've trained our existing staff. We've trained our EHOs on private water supply. So we would bring in people untrained and we would train them so that they were specialists over a period of time. So yes, we're probably unlikely to be able to recruit specialists, but I think once we have them for a few months, they would gradually become specialists. So that's our aim.
Again, thank you for your honesty in that. Councillor Dolan.
Do we have a clawback clause if they leave?
I would suggest not. Any other members? No, in that case, we go to the recommendations. Are members happy to agree the recommendations at 2.1 to 2.5? Item 10, the Capital Investment Programme report. The purpose of this report is to provide members with a financial outturn report for the financial year 24-25 and the programme project progress updates for Q4, and that's the 1st of January to the 31st of March, for the capital investment programme for all asset classes except ICT asset class. Karen Brownlee is available to take any questions on the report, together with other officers as may be required. I'll open it up to members. Councillor Campbell.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, I welcome the report. It's quite worrying that there's quite a bit of slippage, shall we say, in quite a number of the recommendations. However, I'm a wee bit flummoxed about why it has to go to enabling and customer services for approval. I thought we agreed that this committee would make the decisions when it comes to capital spend, for example, just last year. And because it used to go to FPT, which we no longer have, and the changes that the council went through, I thought that was the reason that we decided that. So I'm a wee bit flummoxed about how it's going to Enabling and Customer Services Committee for approval.
I'll pass you to the Director for them.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Councillor Campbell. So, as you say, we agreed in February this year some changes to the delegations to enable more decisions to be made at this committee, but they were based on percentages. And these limits fall outside those percentages, which is why it needs to go there. We are intending to bring a further report later in the year based on how we get on with this to see whether those percentages may need increasing. So, yeah, we're sort of looking at a step change around that.
Okay, thank you for that. Any other members? Councillor Campbell?
Yeah, I've got a couple of more questions, if I may, Chair. Not too many. Page 461. It mentions about 2 second-hand 70-seat school transport coaches. Are we going to get ourselves into a pickle when we get second-hand vehicles? I'm just kind of worried about the actual lifespan that's left in that vehicle. I mean, if it's only a year old, fine, but you know, if it's several years old, could we be getting ourselves into a pickle on that one? In page 462, it mentions about the multimodal transport hubs. I believe the time frame for that is quite short, and how are we going to get the assurances that this goes out to communities, you know, for consultation, for example? And probably my final one is on page 533. I'll just get that, Chair. Now, it mentions about the Dumfries Cinema project, and the final set of reports have been received. So I'm just wondering, when are we going to get that report to E&I? So those 3 questions, thanks.
Okay, thank you. They're certainly diverse questions. If we go to the recycling one first, who's going to come back in that one? Gordon.
Thank you, Chair, and thanks, Councillor Campbell, for your questions there. The coaches we're looking at are just 1 or 2 year old coaches. There's a significant reduction in the capital price for coaches that age. For the mileage and the job that they're going to be doing, that they'll do us fine for that operation. Your second question, Councillor, on the multimodal transport hubs. We were ready to go as soon as the news come through in the MOU that was signed by the UK government. Consultation had already started in some aspects, and the property team had already kicked off drawings, plans, and all that sort of thing in the background as well. So we're on target, we're on plan with that stuff as well.
And I think it was a cinema.
The cinema.
Yeah. Stuart.
Yeah, thanks for your question on that one. So we're keen to bring back to E&I committee not just a report on what the feasibility study has found and concluded, etc., but we're currently doing some follow-up work with potential land interest and potential operator interest as well, which was part and parcel of doing this work. Can we entice interest in in a cinema proposition for the town and in the town centre. So we're advancing that at the moment, because I'm keen to bring back to committee not just that report that says this is what we found out, but actually what the next steps will be as well. So that's the stage we're in.
Thank you. Any other members? Councillor Beretti.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Page 462. Favourite subject, EV charging. It says here for 50 kilowatt new chargers, but further down it also says bus improvements on 455, and it says new electric buses and charging infrastructure. Now, I noticed that on page 535 you've got EV infrastructure, 89,000 and an expenditure of nearly 220. Given that the next item is also about charging, question would be, in response to this and in response to 455, it doesn't have any electric buses that they were buying, so are we looking at laying the groundwork for a new system? Because clearly from experience, the current EV charging network doesn't and won't be sufficient for electric buses. So, and because you're doing the hubs, whereabouts are you looking at installing these things, and how many installations?
Gordon, would you like to respond?
Yeah, through yourself again, Chair. Thank you, Councillor Beretti, for the question. So the chargers that you related, you spoke about first in 4.53, that was just funding that we got to upgrade the paying facility on the current 50 kilowatts, and that just brings us in line with the legislation that was brought forward in 2023. The bus improvements, that detail will be finalised this Friday. So we're working through specifications and allocations of up to 10 fully electric buses at the moment, and the associated charging infrastructure that will go along with that. More so where those chargers will be, depending on what route the bus will run on. Thank you.
Sorry, I'm
Councillor Beretti.
Yeah, thank you. I was about to say yippee, thank you very much, that we're finally getting some that are going to be running on our route, but no, thank you very much.
Any other members? Councillor Dashman.
Yeah, just very briefly, this has just caught my eye. Page 519, waste service infrastructure. There's a wee little bit there about a cancelled landfill restoration project. I'm not familiar with that. Could officers just expand on that? Thank you.
Who's going to come in this one? Karen?
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Councillor Dashford. I don't have that specific detail to hand today, but more than happy through Alan to provide you with yourself and other members with further detail in relation to that specific project. That would be okay. Thank you.
Thank you for that. Any other members? Councillor Beretti again.
Yeah, sorry, thank you for letting me back in. I was going to ask this earlier, but I thought I'll wait till everyone's finished. Page 519, I noticed that in Nithsdale you've got a solar PV array and it's got slippage in 1,500. Whereabouts is that?
Karen?
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Councillor Beretti. Again, I'm not 100% sure where that location is in Nithsdale, and I don't want to give you wrong information, so happy to go away and get the specific detail for you and come back to you. Is that okay? Thank you.
Thank you for that. I have no other registered speakers. In that case, if we'd like to go to the recommendations, are members happy to agree the recommendations 2.1 to 2.13? That's with great hesitancy I'm going into item 11. concerning electric charging of vehicles. This report asks members to agree the collaborative strategy of expanding the public electric vehicle charging infrastructure network across Dumfries and Galloway to meet the projected increase in demand for public electric vehicle charging points. This work could positively contribute to Dumfries and Galloway Council's net zero admissions. Now, I'm sure that we've got at least 2 members that will wish to contribute to this, but I'll open it up to debate. Karen Brownlee is available to take any questions, along with Gordon Bryce and Sarah Jane Alsop. I'll open up to Councillor Barretti.
Yeah, thank you. I think you're right. Some other councils will probably want to also ask questions on this. The CPS is obviously going to be renewed in 26, and this is hopefully going to take its place. One of the things I've seen from the report is that we still don't quite know what the charging rate are going to be offered, because it's likely to be a unified charging rate across the south, across this area, I hope, or I'm led to believe. Are there going to be, let's say, talks about what is actually going to be charged per kilowatt hour? Because I know that at the moment in Dumfries and Galloway, it does have a higher rate than many other areas.
Would you like to respond to that? Gordon, sorry.
Through yourself, Chair. Thank you, Councillor Barretti. So the discussions are still ongoing. There's, as far as I'm aware, there's nothing been agreed as to what that rate would be per kilowatt. And obviously, but what being considered as well is the energy rates across all those authorities. So it's no easy task to consolidate that to a standardised rate, but that's what they're working towards. But we couldn't give you a clue or even a guess as to what that would be at the moment. But given it's a private sector that's coming in, it'll be a competitive rate, or as competitive as it can be. Whether that's split ever slow and fast and rapid charging, we don't know, potentially. But there's too much in the mix and bowl there to give you a straight answer on that yet.
Councillor Brett.
No, thank you, Greg. I'll have another question, but I'll let other members come in first. I think we've discussed this, and certainly before, the new chargers which are likely to be brought in have got a different form of payment system. Currently, most of our chargers don't. So are they likely to be replaced, or what is going to be the option? Because obviously with the CPS card, it's a CPS card that takes information.
Gordon, can you respond to that?
Yeah, through yourself, Chair. Councillor Bretty, so everything above 8 kilowatts, with the new legislation that was brought in, everything above 8 kilowatt charging will have the facility to pay via an RFID system, so just your normal bank card, credit card, whatever that is, and that's part of the upgrade that we're doing at the moment with 50 kilowatt chargers. So anything that was fitted in the ground as of November 24, I think, that's over 8 kilowatt has to have that facility.
Councillor Dashburn.
Thanks, Chair. Yeah, just a quick daft laddie question. Page 545, sorry. It's got a map of all the local authorities, and it goes up as high as Fife Council, and Falkirk's in there as well. I wouldn't have thought they were in the south of Scotland. Is there a reason for that? Thanks.
Gordon.
Through yourself, Chair. Thanks, Councillor. I don't know, to be honest. The Scotland, the country was split up into conglomerates, and that's how it fell. Whether they just felt naturally bolted onto the Edinburgh and the Lothians, I don't know, but yeah, it makes us a sizable team. Thank you.
Councillor Slater, you raised your hand, lowered it, raised it, lowered it, and you've raised it again. I don't know if you're having an issue with your...
Yes, regarding the chargers, There are obviously restrictions of power. That's the main thing. So at the moment, there's a lot of 7 kilowatt ones, as people have said, which would take 6 hours to charge a car, approximately. But you're talking about fast chargers, but there's the third party is Scottish Power or whatever. But if you don't have the facility of extra, 440 volts minimum to get that extra power, that remains quite a difficult situation. And it also restricts where you can actually install these units. And I have to say, yes, I think all new chargers are going to be chip and pin, which is a great move forward, I must admit. The other thing is the cost. The cost on the motorway now is about 80 pence a kilowatt hour, which will take your car about 3 miles probably. So the cost is very important as well into the future. Thank you.
I think the cost aspect's been covered already, that's still to be determined. Whether it be a fast charger or otherwise, fast charging, as you know, I think the capital cost is significantly higher to include that in any project. I think the funding we have does not include that. Gordon?
Through yourself, Chair. Thanks, Councillor, for the question. So the infrastructure that we're talking about is complementing what we've already got, and in most cases the capacity energy is there for what's been planned to be fitted over the next 4 to 5 years. So there shouldn't be any issues there with fitting what we want to. But we do have regular meetings with Scottish Power, and we work alongside their sort of upgrading plan as well, which creates a wee bit of capacity if we need it in certain places.
Just
yes,
going back
certainly.
to 7 kilowatt chargers, there's a car park out here, and it's full of 7 kilowatt chargers, but there's nobody really using them, and quite often the car park's full with petrol cars taking up these spaces. So 7 kilowatt is becoming pretty much old hat, I would say. Thank you.
I think your comments noted on that one. Any other speakers? Councillor Dorman.
Thanks, Chair. Thanks for the report, Gordon and team. It's been trailed already. It's just asking us to agree. I have no issues with agreeing with the report, but you'll be happy to hear I have no questions about chargers, because I'll leave that to the experts to deal with. That's the officers involved. Rather, I'd like to comment strategically on the model used, which is cross-region. It's a great way to do business and gain significant economies of scale, I would imagine. So it's made it much easier for a small region like ours to get more out of it, I would say, which if you read it, that's what it says. So congratulations on that one. It might be a lot of hard work and doing a bit of good work for D&G, because we're, looks like we're the biggest region there, but we've got the smallest population. So that's great. Touring with somewhere, not twinning, but working with somewhere like Lothian is going to be good, and also in terms of achieving expert input as well, which we might not be as up on. So it's great, a fantastic way to do business. Question is, are there any other plans that would lend themselves to this model going forward? Maybe like bridges, no, that's a bit facetious, but anything else that we could do working with other regions that would give these economies of scale and actually help us in terms of our capital investment strategy going forward? Thank you. Or has that been considered, or will it be considered in the future?
Lisa, can I pass that to you?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Thank you, Councillor Dorwood. So, yeah, absolutely. I think there's lots of opportunities for it across a number of areas, particularly around the transport, as you say, on the wider scale. So we're happy and we're keen to improve our networking to make sure that we're maximising those opportunities, not only actually with the Scottish authorities, but also looking south of the border as well.
Right, thank you for that. I have no other speakers. In case I'll move to the recommendations. Are members happy to agree the contents?
Yeah.
Aye, here it
Yeah,
what?
sorry, Councillor McFarlane. Yeah, I did put it in the chat.
Oh, right, it's been missed. Councillor McFarlane.
Yeah, no problem. Thank you. It is all about charges, but it's also linking into the decriminalisation of parking enforcement. As councillors have already mentioned, some of these charges take a wee while to sort of get going. I've got a hybrid vehicle. It takes about 4 or 5 hours for it to charge up. And I'm wondering what work we're doing along with Tony Toppin and his team in relation to how we develop the parking enforcement to link in with the infrastructure that we're sort of rolling out, to make sure that we don't find people who are, you know, limited by parking and capacity in relation to getting the vehicles charged. So just making sure that we're doing some joined up thinking here. Thanks.
Gordon.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you for the question, Councillor. Sarah Jane is working with Tony and the consultants has developed the TROs to make sure that the EV charging infrastructure has a space within those for icing and other things that come along with overstays and such when it relates to EV charging base. So that's been captured.
Councillor McFarlane, does that answer your point?
Yeah, happy with that. Thank you.
Okay, in that case, of no further speakers, members are asked to agree the contents at paragraphs 4.1 to 4.9 and the appendix. On to item 12. The report provides members with an update on the agreed budget savings option to enforce commercial waste contracts for holiday lets, like national non-domestic rate properties, and the related motion which was agreed at the full council on the 27th of February 2025. We've got Alan Mawson and Janice Ireland are available to take any questions on the report together with other officers as required. Members. Members have no speakers on this. In that case, I'll move to the recommendations. Councillor McFarlane, sorry.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Sorry, a wee bit late with that. I was waiting to see if anyone else was interested, having just spoken. Yeah, clearly what we're doing here is we're looking at how we recoup our costs, which is legitimate in relation to the disposal of waste and recycling from holiday lets and such like. And as I understand, we are linking it into our registration process. Do we have an indication as to how long we're going to take to get that done, and what sort of enforcement we'll be able to implement if we still have people who refuse to engage in the process? Thanks.
Alan, can you respond to that?
Yeah, thanks, Chair. Thank you, Councillor McFarlane. So we're working with the Housing Standards team to prepare this paper and looking at the timeline associated with it. So we would anticipate October time would be reasonable for us to start implementing some of that process, with the saving that was agreed at budget process, receiving a 50% saving on that, so a 6 month in the first year, with full implementation then moving forward over that 6 months into the financial year for next year. As far as the second part of the question regarding enforcing it, so we'll work with the housing team again, the standards team again, when we start to pull the information and if we do not get confirmation of the waste, commercial waste being uplifted from ourselves or from a third party as part of the process that will be put in place, and then we would work with our legal colleagues to see how we would then implement any restrictions around about that from the outcome of that. Thank you, Chair.
Councillor McFarlane, does that answer your point?
Yeah, thanks, but I do have another one. So do we have a system whereby we will be able to monitor if a customer, as it were, chooses a third party? Are we able to sort of identify that? And the people who have registered previously who haven't been paying for a waste uplift, do they get from then to now free, or are we going to try and recoup some of that cost? Thanks.
Alan?
Thanks, Chair. Thank you, Councillor McFarlane. So the first part of that, so the registration, we'll be asking them to either confirm through ourselves through the registration form that's being uplifted through waste from the council, or they'll need to confirm what the third party is that they would be getting that waste picked up from. So there will be a process to evaluate 100% of collection over a period of time. Sorry, the second question, can you repeat it, please?
Yeah, the people who have registered, if they haven't already used our resource or our services, and they haven't had a third party do it, you know, are we going to backdate the uplifts costs to them? Thanks.
Not one question that we thought of, Councillor, so happy to speak to the team and the housing team and get back to you on that one if that's okay. Thank you.
Yeah, the reason my question is there's no detriment if we don't backdate it. If all we do is take it from the point where we actually get people to conform, it's costing us money and we don't recoup that cost. Thanks.
Yeah, I think where that could probably be looked in from now on, I think it'd be difficult to do that retrospectively without any notice to that. But your point's noted, and Alan will certainly look into that. Members, any other questions? In that case, I'll move to the recommendations. Are members happy to agree the recommendations at 2.1 to 2.3? Item 13, increase in the bulky weight uplift charges. This report provides members with an update on the budget savings options to increase waste bulky uplift charges in relation to the motion passed in the Dumfries and Galloway Council on the 27th of February 2025, which asks for a simple, intuitive and fair charging structure that meets the income target based on the initial single item charge. We've got Alan Mawson and Janice Ireland are available to take any questions on the report together with other officers as may be required. I'll open up to members for questions. I have no questions on that item. In that case, are members happy to move the recommendations, happy to agree the recommendations at 2.1 to 2.3?
Chair, there's a need to agree an option at 2.3.
Yeah,
I would like to put forward the most affordable option, which is option 1, which achieves the saving. And it also, recognise at 4.4 as well. That should encourage maybe some more goods going to charitable sectors. I think if we are to increase the prices, I'd prefer that it was the lowest cost option to the customer.
Councillor McFarlane, you wanted in?
Yeah, happy to second that. Thanks.
Members, any alternatives to that? No? Thank you for that correction. I omitted that part of it. So members happy to agree the recommendations at 2.1 to 2.3 with option 1 being taken. Okay. In that case, we'll go to item 14, Natural Environment Bill Consultation, the report by Interim Head of Economy and Environment. Members are asked to note the officer's response to the Natural Environment Bill legislation from the Scottish Government in line with the consultation timeframe that closed on the 9th of May 2025. But Simon Fieldhouse is available to take any questions on the report together with the other officers as may be required. I seem to recall this is the item that we had to be an officer response due to the early submission that we had to make. Councillor Marshall.
Yeah, Chair, it's just on that point again, because this isn't the first time we've seen that, although we've managed to kind of, officers to their credit have managed to actually respond to Scottish Government timelines. But, I think we need to kind of send a message back to Scottish Government, because with a lot of their consultations, the times are just not adequate. And I know that you as a chair has agreed an officer response at this time, and we will get an opportunity. But I do think the Scottish Government have to take cognizance of, the way that committees work within local authorities. And, the timelines, 2 or 3 months is very short, especially, if you're operating on a community system, a committee system, officer time, etc. So I really think we do need to send a message back. It's fortunate that we still have a chance to, as elected members, to feed into the response, and thanks for the officer for doing that in the meantime. But it's like a 2-stage approach. So I think it's something the Scottish Government should maybe just take recognition of and give more time for these kind of consultations.
Yeah, we did ask for an extension, but that was declined. And it seemed that the most sensible way forward that we did agree the officer's response on the understanding that we can add into that in process. But I tend to agree with you that we're getting far too many of these consultations that are coming with no notice. I don't know if we could do that separately or specifically on this particular item. Simon, can I pass it to you?
Thanks, Chair, and through yourself. Yeah, normally sort of the consultation window provides obviously the opportunity for us to come to the next available committee to obviously get members to agree the officer response. We did ask obviously at this moment in time for that to be considered, but given the call for views and the very high level and very early stages that this report is at this moment in time, it was declined this time round. But obviously happy to go back and have a discussion, obviously with the Scottish Government in relation to this report.
Thank you. I think that's probably the best way forward in this particular case. But in future, I think if we get more of these, we're going to have to respond as a council, and that's something probably done through the full council because it will go across all directorates. Do you have any others? Yes, sorry.
Do we still have the process, though, when a consultation comes in? I know there was a database set up within the council that we do, as soon as we get the consultation, it's posted on that. And I used to think, there used to be that councils used to get the links out on a regular basis, but I don't know if that's still happening.
I certainly get the links, and I'm fairly sure that everyone does. Yeah, yeah. Sorry, you'd like to come in?
Yeah, thanks, Chair. Yeah, some of these consultations, timeframes are probably unavoidable when it comes to. They're not our consultations; they are from the Scottish Government, but they could potentially be from other bodies. I don't think we would disagree with the draft response from the officers in the report anyway, which is very comprehensive in the way it was. But just picking up on Councillor Marshall's point, I mean, if we couldn't extend it to fit in for this committee to get a response from the committee, maybe there's other ways that we can do it, i.e. if there's any consultations that need an urgent response and the committee's out with that time frame, maybe we could bring it to political groups or non-political groups, or even have it brought to the Business Bureau. I mean, the Business Bureau's there and they can feed back to the respective groups on those points, so that you can get a bit of feedback into the response. So I don't think we should just sort of target the Scottish Government on this, but any response that's required and we can't fit in that committee, then maybe there's other means that we can bring it forward. Thank you.
Yeah, fair, I agree with that in general terms. I don't think we could do that specifically with this one item or this one directorate. It's more of a council-wide approach we need to that, but I think we can make a recommendation that this be looked at to see that there's an adequate way that we could respond to consultations timelessly when they come in, and we could put that as an action from this particular committee. Councillor Marshall.
Chair, I'm a bit wary of that as well, because we do get a lot of consultations that do have a bearing on this council. So, I mean, I think it's right that it's properly scrutinised at a committee level. I just think the National Park consultation, maybe it went to groups behind closed doors, we would have got a different outcome. But obviously it was debated here and we lost that one, we lost the National Park. But there is a lot of weight to some of these consultations. So I'm okay for it to be looked at, but I would prefer most of the main consultations still go through committees and have ratification through that and member input.
Yeah, sorry for any confusion on that. Yes, of course, that must be the main point of call. But it's in a case like this where we get a deadline, we can't meet that deadline, and we've got to do some form of response. That's the area that I think we need to look at right across the council. But of course, yes, each consultation has to be dealt with the parent body in the council. With that in mind, I'm quite happy to go to the recommendations. Members are asked to agree that the 2 seconds, will you? My apologies for that. Are members happy to agree the recommendations? Yeah. I think that's maybe indicative of the fact I need a break. If we reconvene at 1 p.m. Thank you. Okay, good afternoon, members. We'll go on to item 5, report numbers 15, sorry. Report numbers 15, 16 and 17 provide the new service plan performance information for all services within the Economy and Infrastructure Directorate. This particular report presents the Economy and Environment Service Plan for 25-26 to members for approval. We've got Stuart McMillan, I was just checking that Stuart was here, but he is available to take any questions on the report together with other officers. I'll now open up to members for questions. Members. Councillor Dashper.
Thanks, Chair. Page 655. There's a new plan there to deliver a programme of underage test purchasing from tobacco and vape-free retailers. As far as I'm aware, Trading Standards has struggled with staff before and volunteers and such. So do we have the manpower to deliver that? And will it be extended to, for instance, alcohol as well, or is it just nicotine products? Thank you.
Stuart, could you respond?
Thanks, Councillor Dashford. The easy part of your two-part question is the latter bit. So, and I see Sandra's actually rejoined us as well, which is helpful in the detail of some of that. But this does relate purely to the tobacco and vape rather than the alcohol part. So, but as Sandra has joined us, I'm more than happy to pass to her for the first part of your question.
Sandra, I saw the relief in Stuart's face there. Over to you to respond.
Thank you. We are currently in the process of implementing our people plan, which means we're redesigning some of our vacancies. And one of the redesign posts that we're working on with finance and HR has been to introduce a new post of fair trading officer, which would be purely, well, not purely, but they would focus on this function and help us deliver that a bit more. So the programme that we're starting is with existing staff, so we can get it moving, which is why we're only aiming to do 4 premises in this next year, but we hope to ramp that up as we get additional resource.
Okay, thank you. Thanks.
Okay. Any other members? No, I've no other members. In that case, if we members are asked to agree the Economy and Environment Service Plan 25-26, paragraphs 4.3 to 4.9 and the appendix. Members agreed? Item 16, Facilities and Waste Neighbourhood Services. This report presents the Facilities, Waste Neighbourhood Services Service Plan for 25-26 to members for approval. Alan Mawson is available to take any questions on the report, along with other officers as may be required. Members, I'll open it up to questions. Councillor McFarlane.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. It's a very informative report, and I think what it also does, it highlights just the breadth of work that we do within the council, and this is just one small part of it. The only question I really have is in relation to the recognition of staff, and there's on page 680, we have a staff appreciation card, make a difference certificate, and a service champion. I wonder if somebody could talk us through those and tell us what the staff actually think of the different levels and the sort of attainment levels, as it were.
Alan, can you respond?
Yeah, thanks, Chair. Thank you, Councillor McFarlane. So this is a tried and tested model that's been in facilities management for about 2.5 years initially. So we brought it into the FWN model for launch, which is, so a bit of background on that. So basically for the staff appreciation card, it's very much at the local level. So supervisors and line managers have this and they can hand it out with very little criteria behind it, just as a thank you. And it goes very well at the local level, the frontline staff. That moves then into a Made a Difference certificate, which is a more formal process. that then as an application put forward, somebody nominates, it can be anybody from the front line can nominate, or whether in our servers or outside it. We've had directors in the past nominating as an example, and that then comes into a process and then is assessed, and then that is, if it meets the criteria that sits behind it, which is no too challenging a set of criteria, I hasten to add, it then is a certificate that then goes out, and the line manager and others can then go forward. As an example, myself, or sometimes if you've seen executive directors going out and issuing these as well, depending on the nomination. And over the last 2.5 years in facilities, there's probably been about 120 or 30 employees that's received that Made a Difference certificate. It's well received from the staff, and there's 2 flyers done annually that then goes back out to staff to celebrate the success of that Made a Difference certificate. So that's been pushed forward with the waste and neighbourhood and the community assets teams this year, and we've already got, I think, about 25 nominations in for that across other functions and services. The Service Champion's a new one that we've launched this year, so what we identified through the working with the staff was that if there was not multiple nominations for the same person over a period of time, it started to dilute the process. So we looked at moving it to another level or reward, which is Service Champion. So that's got a, a bit more tighter criteria behind it, and is built within our people plan, as they all are. And that's just been launched this year, and there's 2 nominations in for the services across for that to potentially be assessed, with the view of having 2 service champions. So it's a kind of tiered system. Hopefully that offers enough detail. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you for that explanation, and thank you, Councillor McFarlane, for raising that point. It's interesting to hear that. Perhaps they could consider that for elected members in the future. Any other speakers? I've got no other speakers. In that case, we will agree the recommendations, agree the Facilities, Waste and Neighbourhood Services Service Plan 25-26, paragraphs 4.3 to 4.9 and the appendix. Item 17, Transport and Infrastructure Service Plan. This report presents the Transport and Infrastructure Service Plan for 25-26 to members for approval. We've got Karen Brownlee is available to take any questions on the report together with other officers. I'll open it up to members for questions. Councillor Johnson.
Yes, thanks, Chair. It's actually it's on page 707, and it's to do with customer satisfaction with respect to condition of road surfaces, and we've actually got a target of 33%, which I wouldn't have said sounding like a ringing endorsement, or is that just a reflection of reality and what's achievable?
I'll hand it over to you, Karen. It's probably been a reality. If I think in previous years it might have been a way lower than 33%. Karen.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Councillor Johnson, for your question. That particular target in 24-25 was 7%, and the year prior to that was 4%. Now, they're based on I guess the family group. They're based on APSI returns, which we don't receive until June. Now we have increased that to 33% this year, which I agree with you is still quite low. So whilst that is based on the customer satisfaction from a national perspective, internally at the moment we're looking to see if there's ways that we can I guess progress customer satisfaction ourselves from a council perspective, but I would be keen to get the infrastructure to a level before we start putting out annual surveys, etc. So at the moment it's based on national APSI surveys, but that's the reason and a wee bit of background for you. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. So I suppose what we can take from that, there has been a significant improvement.
I'm quite willing to accept that. The Councillor Dashburn.
Thanks, Chair. Yeah, I'm looking at page 706 under change and improvement activities in relation to the roads customer defect reporting development. Just wondering, how are we going to be measuring that in terms of how effective it is and reporting that information to elected members? Will we be getting, for instance, a dedicated agenda item specifically on that? Because it is really important, especially given that elected members themselves are now being directed to use that rather than EMAS. Thank you.
I think that was the plan actually that was going to come back, but Karen.
Thank you, Chair, and through yourself. So members will be aware that the customer defects reporting system for the new road system was rolled out late last year, and that was following a members' seminar. Now, since then, there is improvements that require to be made, so the next step will be the development of those improvements throughout this financial year, which we're categorising as phase 2. Now, our intention is to absolutely take members with us on that journey and what that looks like. So we have been round political groups in terms of you know, teasing out the specific issues of the existing system and what would help us to improve that in the future. And that will continue throughout this financial year. And then our intention would be to report back to members. Likely through a member seminar or a member-specific briefing, but also through the appropriate report later in the year. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. That's useful.
Thank you. Do you have any other members? Councillor Beretti.
Thank you, Chair. Page 705. Delivery plan action, multi-year solution for community transport with partners and stakeholders, and sustainable and consistent community transport network across the region. Now, given what we've mentioned in some of the other agenda items, and I'm going to mention electric vehicles here, how much is that going to impact on that thinking? Because I don't see the point going forward of getting community groups who already maybe face, let's say, challenging financial difficulties to buy into a diesel strategy as opposed to an EV strategy. So what would be the thinking behind that?
Karen, would you like to respond?
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Councillor Beretti, for your questions. So in terms of the elements under the sort of delivery plan actions on page 705, so you commented in relation to community transport. So what I would just like to clarify to members as work is ongoing, you know, in relation with in relation to our community transport providers through third sector D&G. So that work is ongoing. Now, you reflected on the reports that members have already heard today in terms of the electric vehicle charging, elements of the capital investment such as the LUF bid. So that's all intertwined, and officers are, I guess, in collaboration with you know, other services, with third sector in terms of taking that forward together. So it's intertwined. You know, whilst it's separated in the work plan, it's still the service plan, it's still within the overarching transport and infrastructure service plan, so it's collaboratively working together. Thank you.
Councillor Beretti.
Yeah, I look forward to that going in the future, because I really think this is going to be something that we're not going to be able to escape, and I want to see that if communities are engaged, even small communities, that they get it right first time, because we've seen too often when communities go into something and then they have to change their mind because it's not the right thing. Okay, thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Any other members? No, no other speakers. In that case, we'll move to the recommendations. If members agree that the Transport and Infrastructure Service Plan 25-26, paragraphs 4.3 to 4.9 and the appendix. We'll go into item 18. Report numbers 18, 19 and 20 provide the end-of-year performance information for all services within the E&I Directorate. And it's clear from these reports that a significant amount of work has taken place across our region. Members are asked to consider the Head of Service end-of-year assessment of the progress on the delivery of the 24-25 service plan for E&I for the period 1st April to 31st March 2025. The report also provides more detailed information on health and safety performance. I've got Stuart McMillan is available to take any questions on the report, along with other officers as may be required. Members. Councillor Marshall.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. Yeah, just noted a little bit concerning on page 714 on the success measures, table 1, that there's 10 targets that have not been met. And also, I think, probably a little bit more concerning is with regards to the risks in page 731. You know, normally, most of the time when it's reported, we have an original risk that's in the red and then it moves to either yellow or green. But certainly for the first one, EEO1, reduced ability to support the delivery of affordable homes within the region, we're still sitting as the current risk being in red. So it's really just to seek assurances. I know we've declared a housing emergency and there's a plan working towards that, but it's just to maybe get some reassurance, you know, that you know, will move into the yellow amber as soon as possible.
Yeah, I think it's well recognised that it certainly is a work in progress, but Stuart.
Thank you, Chair. Actually, your comment is correct, actually, and I think it's this particular risk factor it's a reflection of the fact that it is quite a strategic risk with multiple factors at play, not all of which are within the control of the council to actually mitigate. But the latest position that we express on page 731 and over on 732 gives an explanation then as to essentially what we're trying to do in terms of the alleviating those aspects of the housing emergency position that we do absolutely have under our control. But all of that is then tied into other policy decisions and funding decisions to allow us to expedite that as quickly as we possibly could. So I think it's a fair reflection of a cold hard look at that risk. But obviously it being red means that it also keeps it very, very high on our agenda as well.
Councillor Marshall, are you satisfied with that response?
Yeah, I mean, when I looked at the latest position and I do know there's a lot more work that's been done behind the scenes, but it's just about reassurance. You know, the target risk is to get into the green, but I'm just wondering what kind of timescales are working towards on that.
Sure. Could you comment on timescales?
I think it's also about the sort of the actions and the amount of collaborative working that's been done across partners right across the south of Scotland. So you might be aware, Councillor Marshall, of the launch of the housing strategy document at the south of Scotland level yesterday, which is a reflection, therefore, of all of the partners across the south making huge efforts here. But it's a position that's not an easy turnaround and not a quick turnaround. It will take a sustained effort over a number of years, which is why we haven't really put a time scale against when we will get down to that target risk position. But we're concentrating at the moment of all the actions that we can take to resolve.
Yes, certainly.
Just come back, I did highlight a number of the success measures that are in the red, but obviously it's one and it's a general one, and I know the reason why, but obviously with the percentage of people that have completed an appraisal, I know we're going through a new system, etc. And it does say that on page 735, but I just wanted a more corporate update, because it's reflected right across all the service directorates. So I'm just wondering where we are with actually rolling out the electronic appraisal process. Is it been rolled out? Are we doing it now, or are we in a crossover at the moment?
I think the true position is a crossover, but Lisa?
Yeah, absolutely. I think there's a couple of factors at play. As you say, we're in the crossover from the old system to the new system, but I also think that the challenges with our directorate in terms of the volume of staff and number of frontline staff that don't necessarily come into an office or workplace make it really, really challenging in terms of the number of appraisals that need to be done for workforces that may only work 45 minutes a day or less. So I think whilst the numbers are not where we'd like them to be, I do also think that the target as being an average corporately presents a challenge, particularly for a directorate like this with such a significant number of frontline staff.
Thank you for that. I've got Councillor Johnson.
Thank you, Chair. It was just actually my question was exactly as Councillor Marshall's just asked about the appraisals, but and it's not just the fact we're in a transitional thing; it's the fact that we seem to have been asking this question for years, you know. So it would be good to see it finally sorted out.
Thank you, Councillor Dashper.
Thank you. Just very briefly, page 745 on the exception report. Community Protection and Transformation Database Replacement. It says that they were unable to do that as the supplier hadn't provided training yet. I see this is generated on the 3rd of April, so 2 months ago. Has there been an update since then? Thank you.
Stuart, can you respond to that?
This is the system that Sandra mentioned in the previous item, Councillor Dashford, and she's just popped her screen back on as well, perhaps just to come in and confirm the situation.
Thank you. Yes, we are actually midway through the training courses provided by the supplier. So we have done some of the staff have been trained, some have yet to be trained. So we are literally halfway through that process. Should be concluded by the end of June into July. And then we hope to properly start to use it and be able to report from it.
Thank you for that. Members, Councillor Bretty.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I'm looking at pages 741, 742, 743, 744, and I missed this when I first looked at this document, and this talks about private water supplies, and I'm just wondering, should, in the previous agenda item where we were talking about private water supplies, should there not have been a reference to these pages so that we could actually look at some of the more detailed aspects of the water supply, because looking at it is interesting. And on page 743 it says that for a reason for an error, or let's say a dip in the results, was due to much more rain falling in a certain period, and that might have impacted on some of the other aspects of water monitoring. Thank you, Chair.
Yeah, I think it's probably appropriate that we consider that maybe at the next time that comes forward. It's probably very valid information. We did go through a very dry period, and it's certainly made up for it since, or making up for it since, but it's quite appropriate. Sandra, you can maybe consider that for the next report.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I can just confirm, yeah, certainly that if it was the sustainability of private water supplies on 744, if I'm correct in that, it was indeed because of the wetter weather. Clearly things are a bit different this year. We've had the dry spell, and there might be more interest and uptake in that with the people that we've been helping. But that was actually all part of the review as well, just possibly more hidden at the rear of the functions that we've been doing and looking at.
Thank you for that. Members have no other speakers. Are members happy to move to the recommendation? Members agree? We're going to item 19. Head of Service and End of Year Assessment, Neighbourhood Services Service Plan. Members are asked to consider the Head of Service End of Year Assessment, the progress of the delivery on the 24-25 Service Plan for Facilities, Waste and Neighbourhood Services for period 1st April 2024 to 31st March 2025. The report also provides more health and safety performance details. But Alan Mostyn's here to take any questions on the report. Members? Councillor Bretty.
Sorry, I missed. Did you see me? Yeah, okay.
Sorry.
749, 4.6.2. Although it says the weight of batteries collected will be given to a future service report, will we get a breakdown of the chemistries of those batteries? Because I'm thinking, like, we've got carbon and we've got lithium batteries. Will it get that specific?
Alan, could you respond to that?
I'm unsure on the answer to that, Chair, so I would have to feed that back, if that's okay.
Sorry, can you just come back? Yeah, I think that is important because we have now got an anti-vape, well, disposable vape ban. So it'd be interesting to see what happens over the next few months when there's a response of that from the public and the current way we collect batteries. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you for that. Members, any further questions? Councillor Marshall.
Yeah, just in relation again on risks in 763, which is FWN01, which is failure to deliver critical essential services, and it lists all the risk factors there. But again, the original risk was in the red, and it's still in the red. So I just want to know the main reasons why we haven't moved out of the red and what measures we're going to take to actually get back into amber or green.
Alan?
Thanks, Chair. Yeah, I think, thanks, Councillor Marshall, for the question. I think it's part of the working plan that we've got this year, and we're looking at the service plan and delivery with the team plans and the business continuity plan refreshers that we've got. The intention is to make them more robust and try and move some of the reds into more acceptable levels is the plan. Thanks, Chair.
Any further questions, members? In that case, we'll go to the recommendations. Members happy to agree the recommendations 2.1 and 2.2. Members are asked to consider the Head of Service end-of-year assessment of the progress on the delivery of the 24-25 service plan for transport and infrastructure for the period 1st April 2024 to 31st March 2025. The report also provides more detailed information on health and safety performance. We've got Karen Brownlees available to take any questions on the report together with other officers. Members. Councillor Marshall. Yeah, going to stick to what I've done the last two as well, and it's going to the risk register. I think I know the answer why we're still in the red in this one though. It's the first one on page 790, which is failure to balance transport and infrastructure revenue budget. I take it that's probably due to the increasing pressures on school transport budgets. But again, we're still in the red, and I'm trying to find out ways that we're going to mitigate that. There's a number of mitigations there. But then when you look at the latest position, I'm just wondering what more can we do to actually make sure that, we move out of the red again in this one. Sorry, Karen.
Thank you, Chair. Through yourself, thank you, Councillor Marshall, for your question. So in terms of the 24-25 position, pressures in transport and infrastructure, very much in and around transport, but also in and around property and in particular, so that repairs and maintenance. Going forward into 25-26, we are already putting in mitigations in order to reduce the risks, particularly to revenue budgets, as outlined. And we will continue to update the risk register as part of the service plan going forward with those mitigations specifically to those services. This one also includes, no apologies, this one only includes revenue budget. I was going to add on a little bit about capital budget there as well in terms of mitigations, but this one refers to revenue. So as I say, just to give that confirmation, there are mitigations in place. We are working collaboratively with finance colleagues to look to reduce pressures within those specific budgets. Thank you.
Karen, perhaps if I could ask a question. We made a significant investment in roads, particularly on road repairs and staffing. Could you give us a brief update on the staffing position? We were aiming for almost a 50% increase in staffing, and I realised that we had members coming in and members leaving again. It's just an up-to-date position on that.
Thank you, Chair. Through yourself, now I don't actually have specific numbers in front of me, however I can give that assurance that we have increased quite significantly following the additional funding agreed by members, you know, both to the operational team as well as the inspection team as well. I'm happy to get the specific details in terms of the increase of staff and ensure that with all members. Thank you.
Yeah, that's perhaps a bit unfair asking on the day, but if you wouldn't mind, I think it would be quite appropriate to get these numbers. Councillor Dorward.
Thank you, Chair. Thanks for the report. It's page 779, under change and improvement, 4.8.1, the CDR system. I didn't know that was what it was called, the sort of report a road system. And I get it's got teething problems, but it is one of the biggest issues that constituents are talking about, because sometimes they you know, if they can't get a dot in, they can't report the road. So what do we do with that? And also, I've used it, that's what we use, but you can't upload photos. And photos are, it's probably been taken already, but photos are really useful when you're trying to, you know, illustrate the issue. It's very hard sometimes to do it in writing. So I'm wondering if that's been considered as part of the update and upgrading process. Thank you.
Cam?
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Councillor Dorward, for your question. So in terms of the new roads reporting system, which I touched on the last report, but I guess just to go into a little bit more detail there. So, you know, that's been a huge transformational change for the service over the last couple of years, and we've made significant, you know, leaps and bounds to improve that system. In the main, in the back office system, there has been improvements, you know, front facing as well. Our next phase is about, you know, I guess increasing the accessibility, increasing, you know, the usage in terms of how our customers, members of the public, elected members, etc., use that system. So things that we're looking on, you touched on there, you know, at the moment the system can only allow one member of the public to put in one dot where there's a defect, and what we're ending up doing is the whole road's now covered in dots for one defect. So that, in essence, puts pressure on the team. So we're looking to change that. We're looking to you know, adapt that. We're looking to have, you know, wee text boxes, for instance, to, if you clicked on a dot, you'd say, well, that was reported such and such, and, you know, that's the defect, that's its priority, that's when it's going to be fixed. So we're looking to increase that information. That will take time. The team are working through that sort of phase 2 stage at the moment, and we will continue to take members on that journey with us, and we'll continue to seek your input, because obviously you have been using that system. So that's one element that we're looking at. Photos we are considering, and you know, we do get photos emailed to us, but in actual fact that doesn't help the inspectors any, because they would still have to go out onto the road to inspect the defect. But we are considering that as an option, because quite often members of the public do like to show the specifics that they're referring to. So thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Slater.
Yes, thank you, Chair. Yes, it's on the system of blue dots on the map, and as a previous councillor said, there's not always space to put them on. Now, I must admit, I'm still a great believer in photographs and possibly film, because it shows exactly where it is. the engineer can look at the photographs and give a good idea what that road's actually like at that point. At the moment, you put a blue dot on, you're quite right, only one person can report that, and then you get a whole load of dots in your system. But I still believe that photographs tell 1,000 words in a second, and engineers can look at that and say, that's a really bad piece of road there, we should look at that quite quickly. I know that the fact that sometimes it's difficult to tell the depth of a pothole, but I believe sometimes taking a photo can virtually show that, but I believe that your system can't tell the depth of the pothole yet either. I believe that's maybe in the future, but I believe that photographs, I get approached quite often to say that road's been reported. I says, yes, I have reported it, but it's not done yet. And it kind of makes me feel a wee bit guilty that you said it will be done and it's not, but I do my best. I probably will sometimes resend it back in again. So that's a very important thing. It's probably one of the most reported subjects of the road. And one other point is traffic signage, and especially in the middle of the road, keep left signs and that. There's one down at the bottom of the Moffat Road again, which was replaced recently, but I think it's the design. They've got this kind of V-shaped design. They're not the best of things really. They tend to get damaged more often. But there's one on top of Craig's Road, which has been missing for a while, and a car hit it in the last few weeks. Sometimes a blue sign's put up or a cone's put up, but at night it's difficult to sometimes see these things in the wet night, so they are a danger, and they obviously should be replaced. But I'm a great believer in photographs. Yes, thank you.
Thank you for that. I've allowed you to make some local references there rather than strategic. But I've certainly raised this with you as well about the possibility of you're able to double report or multi-report potholes. And I think that certainly is a flaw in this system. Has there been any progress in that?
Thank you, Chair. And I guess just to clarify on that will form part of the Phase 2 works that's ongoing at the moment, you know, and just in terms of that providing more information for a defect. But, several people been able to report the same defect as well, because that is a frustration at the moment. And as I said earlier, with the blue dots going all the way up the road, it's frustration for the team too. So we're looking at that. Thank you.
Yeah, I certainly tend to change it to the road condition. And get round it that way, but however, Councillor Bretty.
Thank you, Chair. I almost hate myself about saying about photographs, but if photographs were allowed to be presented, there would need to be a detailed action for the person taking the photograph so that they knew exactly what was required, because a photograph is 2D, not 3D, and therefore no one can understand it from looking at an image. You can't tell the difference, you can't tell the depth of the hole. A visual inspection can give that, but a photograph can't. So there would have to be a guide as to how to send photographs in. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. I don't think the suggestion is to solely rely on photographs, but just as a supplementary evidence. But I've certainly seen articles placed in potholes to show the depth, like a full traffic cone. You want to come back?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I'm quite frequently asked this question at community councils, because clearly, if you live in the rural area, they want to report, and it's almost in every single community council I go to, they will report that. And I always say, do not take a photograph unless you can be sure you're not putting yourself in danger or anyone else in danger. And that is one of the criteria, because if you're in a rural community and you've got very short roads and lots of corners, and someone parks where they think it's safe because there's no cars, then accidents can happen. So I'm in favour of photographs, but I'm not in favour of people putting themselves in lives or others in danger.
I don't think, in that respect, I don't think there's any suggestion that we're promoting the use of photographs, but just that merely accepting them should they come in. I think I saw a hand. Was that Councillor Johnson? Did you raise your hand? No. Councillor Slater, did you want to come back in?
Yes. Going back to photographs, I must admit, photographs are taken by smartphones and that are geostationary. They know exactly where that pothole is on the road within maybe a metre or so. So I think I can't see people, you know, getting themselves in danger to try and take a photograph. If they see vehicles coming, they'll probably wait till they're past and then take the photograph. Because I do that, I've not got to stand on the road where there's lorries coming along and then take the photograph then. I wait till the road's clear and then take the photograph. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. I don't think we're actually going to make a decision on this one just now, but I would tend to agree with Councillor Beretti. I think there's probably more of a risk. But I think that's something to be looked at when they go to the next stage, to be looked at whether or not photographs will be accepted. Karen?
Thank you, Councillor Blake. Members, just for absolute clarity, we can't accept photos just now through the current system. As we move forward, it will potentially be something that we look at, but just so it's clear that an inspector would still have to go out onto the road to inspect the defects to get the size, the width, the depth, the position, etc. So I just wanted to clarify that, just in case any members of the public are listening and think that we would be able to accept photos and deem the prioritisation of the defect on a photo, which we cannot do at this moment in time. Thank you.
Right, thank you for that. I have no other speakers in that case. We'll go to the recommendations. Are members happy to agree the recommendations at 2.1 to 2.2? I have no other urgent business for the meeting, although we do have right now 2 exempt items to consider. We go to item 22. If you could let me get to the end of my book. If we go to item 22, we're considering the adoption of a resolution to exclude the public in terms of section 58(4) and paragraph 6(9), item 29, and 8(9), item 24 of part 1 of the Schedule 7A of the Local Government Scotland Act 1973. I am aware that we have a proposal from one member that one of the items is held in public, and we'll consider that. But can I ask that at this stage, that with item 24, we could agree that we will definitely go into to exclude the public for item 24, and that deals with that one, and then we can deal with it. Members agreed with that? For item 23, Councillor Marshall has raised the proposal that we hold this in public. I personally feel that this is, would probably not so much stifle debate, but stifle the responses that the officers can give, because a lot of the information cannot be made public as we're still going through the procurement process. Can I ask Karen to come in and speak on them?
Thank you, Chair, and members will be aware of this, but I just wanted to reiterate. So, school and local bus network, and certainly this paper that's in front of you, the process is still live. So officers are very, very limited indeed in terms of what we can share with you. However, we did want to provide members with that assurance that the process is ongoing. Officers are working to progress through as per the timescales. Associated with that, I just wanted to give I guess that confirmation to members that Swestrans Board is meeting on Friday. Swestrans will take decisions in terms of the tender process for the subsidised local school bus network routes. So again, we cannot share any information in terms of that, and hence the reason we wanted to emphasise the fact that the process is still a live tender. The third element I just wanted to provide to members was last week you received 3 confidential briefings from our Executive Director, from Lisa, just in terms of processes that were progressing in relation to that live tender document. The purpose of making this report exempt was to allow us to explore that confidential email that was shared last week with members. If members agree to not hear this report exempt, then we would not be able to share any further detail in relation to that. So just wanted to highlight three key points in relation to this report. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Marshall, having heard the response from the officer, how would you like to proceed?
Yeah, on that basis, looking at the report that we have in front of us and taking on board the 3 points that you've made, I think the main thing is that the main decisions will be at the confidential meeting taken by the West Strands Board on Friday. And that's right and proper, that's done. So it's only a few days away. I do think that this item is already in the public domain, or aspects of it, and I think as long as if we take this in public, then we don't touch on any of the confidential information you may have. But I think it's just to have that in the public, because I don't think there's much more you could share with us in confidence, especially as we only have 2 or 3 days to wait the outcome of the tender process on Friday. So I would move that we hold this in public, but do not, officers don't actually provide any confidential information. That can be done, as you said, we've already had 3 confidential notes. Any additional information can be done by email before Friday. So on that basis, I would move.
Thank you. Do you have a seconder? Councillor Dowell.
Thanks, Chair. I think the public have been crying out for information. I think it's incumbent on us as elected members to give them what we can within the confines or the caveats of commercial and confidence. I'm not suggesting we go into that at all, but I think it would be useful to have a debate so that the public recognise that we are doing our job and scrutinising as far as possible what we can. I totally recognise the challenges, and I'm not expecting any confidential information to come from this, but I think in the interest of public disclosure that we do this at an open forum with the caveats that I've said, and with the proviso that West Strands will have a meeting about this to make the decision, which is their role, on Friday. I think a report back or another meeting to discuss that might be useful, but I don't see any issues with this being a public meeting at the moment. Thank you.
Thank you for that. I'd certainly like to raise an amendment to that we do in fact exclude the public. I think there's far too much risk. We've already had 3 confidential documents, and we have information in our head, and trying to decipher what is said in open public and what is decided behind closed doors. I think that puts members at risk. So I would certainly move that we do exclude the public. Councillor Johnson.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, I'd be happy to second you on that. I think it would be beneficial for us to have the confidential update, so I would second your amendment.
Okay, in that case, yes, Councillor Campbell.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. I'm not proposing a counter amendment, so don't worry about that. But my feelings is that whether it's a public report or an exempt item, I don't think the report should have been here in the first place. We should have had the board's decision and then a report brought back. But that's by the by, so I'll leave it at that, Chair.
Okay. Can we go to the vote?
Okay then, thank you, Chair. I've got a motion proposed by Councillor Marshall, seconded by Councillor Dorward, not to exclude the public for item 23. The amendment being proposed by yourself, Chair, seconded by Councillor Johnston, to agree an adoption of the resolution to exclude the public from the meetings in terms of section 50A for paragraphs 6 and 9 of part 1 of schedule 7A of the Local Government Scotland Act for item 23.
23. 73.
I'm getting my threes on muddled up. 1973 for item 23. Too many threes. Right. Okay then. Going to the vote, Chair.
Amendment.
Vice Chair.
Amendment.
Councillor Bretty.
Motion.
Councillor Campbell,
Abstain.
Councillor Dashper,
Motion.
Councillor Dorward,
Motion, please.
Councillor Hagman,
Motion, please.
Councillor Ingalls,
Amendment.
Councillor Johnston,
Amendment.
Councillor McGregor,
Amendment.
Councillor Marsh,
Amendment.
Councillor Marshall,
Motion.
Councillor McFarlane,
Motion.
Councillor Slater,
Amendment.
Amendment. Councillor Stevenson,
Motion, please.
and Councillor Wilson.
No, 1, 2, 3. Oh, it's got to be carried.
Okay, motion is carried, 8 votes to 7 with 1 abstention.
Okay, in that case, we'll go to item 23. This report provides members with an update on the contract renewal process for the school and local bus network contracts. Members will be aware that the procurement process is currently alive, and it would not be appropriate for officers to discuss anything relating to that process, which is due to be considered at an additional Swesttrans board meeting on the 6th of June. The verbal update that members are providing will only relate to a recent decision. Karen Brownlee is available to take any questions on the report, along with Simon Bradbury, Karen Scott and Gordon Bryce as may be required. I will open it up to members. Councillor Dorward.
Thanks, Chair. It's related, but don't worry, it's not about confidential information. It's about strategy and planning going forward. Number of committees ago, and I can't remember how many, I haven't done my homework on that, but it is there somewhere. I will find it if I need to. I asked for a medium to long-term plan regarding our bus services and how we propose, and I'm not asking for how we propose, I'm just asking for timescales, how we propose to do anything, because for years it's just been managed decline. We put more and more money into buses and we get less and less back. And that's not confidential, that's open, that's in the public domain. And that's our solution all the time. Every year we sit at committees and Swesttrans asks us for more money and we give them more money to keep bus services going. And every year services are cut slightly more, slightly more, slightly more. And constituents, this is about them, this is about people in Dumfries and Galloway. All of us sitting here will have had concerns by constituents. And mine, if I'm being parochial, which I'm not normally, but I'll be parochial this one, in Heath Hall and Locher Briggs, can't get home from a back shift at work because there's no buses. Now, I don't see that improving anytime soon. And my plea to officers and the administration is that we urgently look at a medium to long-term plan that looks to radically, innovatively and creatively dealing with our public transport in this region, because it has, since I've been a councillor, which has only been 3 years, it is reduced dramatically, and I don't see it getting any better. So that's not about what's ever in the report, what's going forward. It's about us stopping the bus, pardon the pun, and doing something about where we're going, because at the moment it's just managed decline, and that's not what constituents deserve, not what the region deserves. And if you're going to come to this region, one of the things you want, one of the things that attracts folk to a region is decent housing, decent infrastructure, decent public transport. I think we're not doing, it's not a reflection on officers, by the way, it's just we, and in general, we are not doing very well on either of, or any of those three issues. So that's the question. Thank you.
Thank you. Having been a councillor for 18 years, I think we've been in that much decline, certainly for the last 10, 12 years. It's certainly it's something we've got to look at in the way forward. There's absolutely no doubt in that. Cam, do you want to respond to
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Councillor Dorwood, for your question. I'll maybe start a response for you, and then I'll hand over to Simon to expand on that. So I think, you know, certainly over the sort of last 6 months or so, since I've been involved with transport, I think, you know, certainly there's, you know, a real I guess, sense of that need to improve collaboratively, you know, not just you know, with ourselves in Swestrans, but, you know, with wider partners, you know, across the region and indeed with our communities. So I think a couple of things for me just to start off with sustainability. So, you know, in terms of, you know, how we work with our operators, and we can share this with you because I think it has been in previous reports, and it might possibly in this one as well. So, you know, we're looking at that longer term contract which will help provide the sustainability for our operators, and they you know, generate more interest within the region. Separately to that, we've also got, you know, the LUF bid, which we've just recently you know, had confirmation that we've been successful in that bid and investment, you know, right across Dumfries and Galway through the hubs, etc., which we discussed as part of another report earlier on. And I think the third thing for me is the regional transport strategy, you know, which has already been agreed, is in place in conjunction with, you know, with Swestrans. But for me, it's very much about the development and that collective and collaborative development of the action plan behind that to actually make progress going forward. So I'll maybe hand over to Simon now, who might want to, I'm maybe putting him on the spot here, but might want to share a little bit more detail in terms of those. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Karen, and thank you for your question, not putting me on the spot at all, Karen. I mean, without going into the details of the procurement exercise, which has inevitably been the focus for many of us over previous months, clearly that's where a lot of our emphasis has been. But I should point out that that procurement exercise and the preparation for it did attempt to pick up many of the points that have been made to us in recent times in terms of ways in which we can introduce either efficiencies or improvements in the operation of the network. So I think your point is well made in terms of opportunities and ways in which we can look to the future and look beyond this procurement exercise, which clearly sets out contracts which will be in place for a number of years across the local bus network. And we're confident that through that process we'll be able to put in place some improvements, not least in terms of the way in which we manage the relationship between Swestrans, but also the council, and the way in which we work in collaboration with the bus operators to deliver improvements. So I think that procurement process is obviously ongoing and will continue over a number of weeks to come. But beyond that, I think collectively, us as officers, but also working increasingly in partnership with the bus operators, will have just more bandwidth and more opportunity to reflect between us in terms of ways in which we can kind of build upon the success, I'd like to say, in terms of this procurement process, and ways which we can work in partnership and collaborate more in future. That may be in terms of issues which have been made aware to us, such as ways in which we provide bus passenger information, ways in which we can raise awareness and amplify and potentially market the bus network and individual services for those that simply aren't aware. And there's opportunities to increase passengers and patronage of the bus network in such a way through which we can then start to kind of reap rewards through having more people use the bus network. I suppose the final thing I'd point out is that we continue to work alongside partners across the south of Scotland, particularly with Scottish Borders Council, but also Transport Scotland. And we've used the forum of the Convention of Southern Scotland and one of the key areas of focus in relation to the public transport network, because your points in relation to the challenge of operating an effective public transport network, particularly in rural areas in southern Scotland, are well made and are well recognised. And so I think that there's more that we can do, which we've already started on the process, to understand how we can collaborate with others who are experiencing similar challenges, so that we can identify best practice, benchmark with one another, and collaborate more in future, both regionally and nationally, on what some of the solutions to those ongoing challenges might be.
Thank you for that. Councillor Dorward.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that. I appreciate resources are tight, but resources have been tight for a number of years, and that's the response that we've had back for a number of years. And that isn't a criticism of officers, it's the fact they're working with one hand tied behind their back sometimes in terms of resourcing. So, you know, we've been extending contracts for a number of years. We're looking at different ways of engaging with providers to improve our bus services, and nothing's happened. They've got worse and worse and worse. And that's you know, I'm not a bus user, thank goodness, because I wouldn't be able to get around the region. Just interestingly, Transport Scotland Act 2019 allows local transport authorities to run their own bus services, franchise bus services in the areas, or enter bus service improvement partnerships. Now, I know there's economies of scale in that, I know there's challenges in that, and we don't have the same amount of users as, say, Lothian Transport does, or Manchester Transport, or London Transport, which was never deregulated. London was never deregulated, and look how successful that is. We've had to deal with deregulation of bus services, and we're now trying to patch it up as we go on. But again, you know, have we thought about consideration of that and looking at that model rather than being reactive consistently and spending, as you have just said, most of our time in negotiations with providers to try and get a service that isn't too badly reduced, which is what we're doing potentially at the moment, and we've done for years. So I'm not criticising you or what you're doing. I just think we are doing more of the same, and the results aren't getting any better. And that, in essence, is the definition of insanity, isn't it? Doing the same thing where you don't get any better results. I'm not quoting that properly. Somebody else will probably quote it rightly, but we're not doing anything different. And we're getting worse results from my perspective. Thank you.
Thank you. If I could pass you over to the Director.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Councillor Dorward. I think the key for me here is that whilst we've perhaps done the same for a number of years in terms of extending contracts, the big difference is that we are doing differently now. So the procurement process is different to what we've done over the last couple of years. And that is because we've taken into consideration the medium and the longer term. It isn't going to change things overnight. It is a transformative process, but that will buy us the time that will give officers the space and the capacity needed to be able to consider things in the medium and long term, which there hasn't been the opportunity to do from a capacity perspective in recent years. So although it's only recently, we're absolutely doing differently now compared to where we were 12 months ago.
Thank you for that. Councillor Slater.
Yes, thank you, Chair. Regarding the buses and the cost of it, it all comes down to money at this end of the day. And the fact is, we appear to have some of the oldest buses in Scotland coming around our town at the moment. They look quite old. It doesn't look good in the town either. But I believe that every year, as another councillor said, a bus company comes back and said we require more money and more money. And it's right, this can't go on, there has to be a better way, but the problem is, if you take bus routes, the Loch Side Loop has an average of 50 people per bus, which is one of, I believe, the most profitable runs in Scotland for them. And you take like Georgetown, where the average is probably 2. So you can see how it comes down to money, and if you're running a business, the business has to run at a profit, so it's a very, very difficult decision to take, and how you sort this out. It's basically it comes down to money, but how much money do you spend over a period of time, and what do you get more for it? Do you get more buses, or you still get less buses? And that's what appears to be happening. Thank you.
Thank you for that. Any other questions, members? Councillor Marshall.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. I know Councillor Dorward says that she raised an issue, and she can't remember how far back that was, but certainly I raised the issue just at the last E&I committee in April when we got the report, and it's about the role that D&GC buses plays in a system now that, you know, I've been a member of Swestrans, and I'm a substitute member now, but I've been a member in the past when we went through a tendering process. And it is obvious that, you know, there is decline in the bus routes and there needs to be something done. And the bus operators, I think this time round there's maybe more bus operators, that's encouraging, but the question asked at the last, you know, when we've seen the report that DGC buses is in no way fit at the moment to actually be a municipal kind of bus operator, and we're not asking for that, but we're asking for probably, I think we're being a little, we're not being ambitious enough when we know of the problems that we've got with regards to trying to get tenders for routes and to try and, you know, there is always the pressure of funding as well. But I do think that there's more that we can do rather than just be an operator at the last resort to step in. I think there's where we can actually build in the future, and we need to start building now so that we have the capability and resources to step in, you know, because it is a fragile network that we're operating within, and we are trying to encourage more people onto buses. So I'm just a little disappointed the way things are going. I would just like to see maybe in the future a report coming on what we can do more as DGC buses to support the network.
Thank you for that. And you know, where I agree with both what yourself and Councillor Dorward have said, we're here to consider this particular report just now. I think the fact that it's been raised by Councillor Dorward in the past, and again by you at the last meeting, you said that it's something that does merit a report in future once this current process is finished, and it's something we should maybe programme in for the very near future. Any other members? No, in that case, if we go to the recommendations, members happy to agree the recommendations at 2.1 and 2.2, obviously not 2.3, as we did not hear anything in private. We've already agreed to exclude the public for the final item, so I'd like to formally close this meeting and we'll reopen again in about 2:15, and that give members the time to go into the appropriate link. Thank you.